Here's your host, Dieter Kurtenbach.
Oh, what a lead-in. Sports Phone KNBR, Dieter Kurtenbach hanging out with you until 9 p.m. I promise we'll talk about something other than the San Francisco Giants in just a little bit, but we got to talk about the San Francisco Giants for a little bit here. My goodness. It's nice to have a good bullpen. It's nice to have good starting pitching. You kind of need to hit the baseball in the year 2025. I know that the Giants had a lot of success in what is now known as a dead ball era. And I know that playing good defense and pitching well can win you quite a few baseball games. But in order to win enough baseball games to make the playoffs, and that is unquestionably what the San Francisco Giants want to do this season, what the Giants need to do this season, you're going to have to hit the baseball a couple times too. And as of late, the San Francisco Giants, as a collective, as a team, simply cannot do it. And baseball is a sport of streaks. And this is unquestionably a tough stretch for the entire team. Sometimes, like the flu or cold, it's just contagious. One guy gets it and everybody gets it after him. But here's why this feels heavier, I think. Here's why it's not just so easy to brush away the Giants' scuffling struggles at the plate right now as they lose 3-1 to the Detroit Tigers, dropping the series in Detroit. At a point in this game, by the way, Riley Green, the Tigers' very talented outfielder, had more hits than the entire Giants. That point was the 7th inning. The reason that this feels so much heavier, at least from my perspective, in trying to read the room here a little bit with Giants fans who are wearing it, and I'm hearing from you every day, is because it's hard to look at this lineup and feel like any of this is temporary. It, of course, is. It will, in fact, get better because it's hard for it to get much worse. But you look at the lineup, and it is difficult to say who's going to pull this team out of it. This is a team that does not have the kind of offensive stalwart that makes you feel a little bit better when everybody's scuffling. Because, you know, hey, at least that guy's got the track record of going 280 and hitting 40 bombs. And we can count on that guy. He might be going through it right now, just like everybody else, but we can count on that guy. Here's how you know that the Giants don't have that guy. Because the sentence that would define the San Francisco Giants season, and in particular, the last couple of weeks, the sentence that would define this team is, where would they be without Wilmer Flores? Wilmer Flores is still hitting. Wilmer Flores is still doing what he needs to do. Wilmer Flores has been fantastic. No knocks on Wilmer Flores. In fact, he's the only one who can get a knock, ironically. Wilmer Flores coming through another RBI today, still in the top 5 in baseball on RBIs. Had an RBI yesterday. He's the only one getting RBIs in Detroit from the San Francisco Giants. Wilmer Flores has been fantastic. Of course, we don't expect Wilmer Flores to continue to be this fantastic. Maybe being a full-time DH will help him continue this wonderful streak a little bit longer. Maybe he can stretch it all the way to late July or August, but at some point regression will come, and you just hope that he staves off the worst of it. He's a very professional hitter. He's been in the league for a long time. He's doing wonderful work with the bat in his hands, especially with runners in scoring position. That's who the building is built on top of right now for the Giants offense. That is the foundation of the team right now, offensively. Maybe Wilmer will save us. We can all love Wilmer Flores. Wilmer Flores is fantastic. Again, this is not an indictment in any way on Wilmer Flores. But you can't project yourself as a playoff baseball team, even if the record says that you are right now, even if you think that the talent on this roster is good enough. You cannot look me in the eye and say everything's going to be okay when you built the house on top of Wilmer Flores. It's got to get better. And the names, you know them already, that have to get better are pretty obvious. It's Willy Adames, and frankly, I think it's Matt Chapman as well. These are the two big free agent signings under Buster Posey. I know technically the Matt Chapman signing wasn't Buster Posey, and certainly he wasn't as a free agent. But Buster Posey does finish that deal. He then goes and signs Willy Adames. And these guys were supposed to be the 2-3 hitters in the Giants lineup. And where are they hitting now? They're hitting 5 and 6. And Adames comes to the plate as the tying run tonight. And I know he had 2 hits. One of them he hit hard. The other one's a bloop single. And what do we get from them tonight? What have we been getting from them lately? They're streaky hitters. They're streaky hitters. There's nothing wrong with that. Their ups are going to come. Their ups are going to come, I promise you. But you got streaky hitters in terms of Chapman, in terms of Adames. We know what Mike Yastrzemski is at this point. If you haven't figured it out by now, he's a streaky hitter. Elliot Ramos, not enough of a track record to maybe make a definitive distinction, but venture to say that he's not a bastion of consistency. Hell of a player, Elliot Ramos. But is that the guy you're building it on? And Jung-Hoo Lee is a nice ancillary piece. He's somebody you want in the lineup every day. I don't know if I want him hitting cleanup. I think I'd prefer him batting first. But when you don't have a Willy Adames or a Matt Chapman that you can bat cleanup, or third, or second at this point, you have to hit Jung-Hoo Lee fourth and hope that, I guess, the power is going to be there. And I think his swing's getting a little bit longer because I think that, like a lot of players, if not all the players on the Giants right now, they're wearing it. They're feeling it, and maybe they're trying a bit too hard, and they're pressing. This entire team is pressing, and I'm not in Detroit right now. I can only make observations from Alameda on the television broadcast, but they kept cutting into the dugout, and these guys were eating it. These guys were wearing it, which I can appreciate. I can appreciate that they are not feeling frivolous about it, right? This is the sound of losing, to quote Brad Pitt's character in Moneyball. That's what losing sounds like. You should be wearing it. You should have enough pride to where it frustrates you that everybody is having a bad offensive go of things. But again, if this was the Yankees, or if this was the Phillies, or if this was the Dodgers that we were talking about, and they were going through a lull like this right now, you would say, yeah, I like our chances. I like our lineup. We got bona fide hitters. We got dudes who have got it done time and time and time again. Even the young guys you feel good about on a lot of those teams. Who do you feel is going to pull this team out of the funk right now offensively for the Giants? I don't know where I point to. I really don't. You have to hope that it's Chapman or Adames. You have to hope that, because that's what they're getting paid to do. From Willy Adames' case, certainly that is what he is getting paid to do. And I'm not here to count how much he's getting paid, but when you are brought in for your bat, because it's certainly not his glove, the bat has to be better. And we can preach patience because it is only May 27th, and patience, this too shall pass, one of those things. But how bad can it get before it passes? How tough can it be to watch before it passes? This offense is in a deep, deep rut. And the reason that it feels so deep isn't just because of the outward statistics. I mean, this team is hitting 186 its last 311 at-bats. So since Wilmer had that 3-home run game on the Friday night against the A's, they are batting 186 as a team. They have 5 home runs total in those 311 at-bats. That's 1 every 62 at-bats if you are so inclined to do the mathematics. They have 21 runs since Wilmer had that 3-home run game. They have 21 runs total. Here's another little fact for you. They have 1 stolen base in the last 2 weeks. I know Bob Melvin's out here trying to do something. He gets himself thrown out of the game tonight. I know there's only so much you can do as a manager when your team can't hit. What are you supposed to do? Go take the bat and show them? Maybe run a little bit. Maybe when you get somebody on, let's get a little more aggressive. I loved what they did with Elliot Ramos tonight. And I don't know if it was very high stakes. I don't know if it was necessarily an aggressive play by the definition. But Elliot gets on. Wilmer has a knock, and they're sending him. We're not doing first and third, second and third, and nobody out. We're not waiting around for someone to get the run on the board. First to third. Forget that. First to home. Get in there. Let's score a run. We need one. I like that. Let's get a little more aggressive on the base pass because you're not there enough to where you get the opportunity to be conservative. You can't trust that anyone's going to drive you home right now. This was a team that came into the season with what we all expected to be an average to above average offense, right? This was a team that has overtly stated that they were going to win on pitching and defense. Fair enough. You can only do so much one off season to change things. I don't know what kind. It would be a pretty dramatic shift for this team to become an offense-first baseball team. It would take multiple off seasons to get there, and it would take a hell of a lot of drafting and some really great prospect development to become an offense-first baseball team. That's fine. Your ballpark probably won't allow it. So it's fine to be a pitching and defense team, but you have to be better on offense than this because you play 81 games in another ballpark. And when you have a pitcher like Logan Webb, who, yes, he did not have a good start against the Royals, right? And he was having a Cy Young start to the campaign before that. And today, was it his best? No. Was it good enough? Yes. The Giants pitched well enough to win. Did they defend well enough to win? Mike Yastrzemski had a tough day in the outfield. It's a tough outfield. And the first one that got away from him was 115 off the bat. I don't know how the hell you play that one. So the Giants did enough to win in the other areas of the game, but it never really felt like they had a shot, even when Adames came to the plate as the tying run in the top of the ninth. Never really felt like they had a shot because this offense has been so inept for now a very long period of time. It is not a small sample size here. Credit to them that they can get some wins while they're scuffling. And again, this too shall pass. But is it going to swing in the exact opposite direction? Are all these hits going to bundle up and then hit like a snowball where, hey, we didn't hit for 2 weeks. Now we're going to go gangbusters for 2. I don't think so. I think you have a team of streaky hitters at best. And yeah, some of them are going to go on some hot streaks here, unquestionably. And it will be fun while it happens. And you better take advantage of those hot streaks when they do happen. But you just don't have the kind of stalwart offensive player, much less players, that you can count on night in, night out, because clearly Adames is not that guy, and Chapman doesn't seem to be that guy this season either. And I'm not sure if he ever was. That's where we're at. That's why it feels so heavy. This too shall pass. It might even change starting 10 a.m. tomorrow, Pacific Standard Time. Daylight time? Forget it. At any moment, this team could break out. But the damage is done partially in the standings, but definitely emotionally. I think a lot of trust has been lost in this team from what was a really nice start. And you can't say you didn't see it coming now, looking back on it in retrospect, with hindsight being 2020. With all of the tight wins that this team had, it covers up a lot of cracks, right? It seals them up for just a little bit. But the water will eventually break that dam. And right now, it just looks like they're completely underwater at the plate. And I feel bad for a guy like Logan Webb, who I know is feeling it. I know he's feeling the weight of being the ace of this team. And I know that, he wanted to be better than he was tonight, but he wasn't bad tonight. At least against the Royals, he wasn't good. At least against the Royals last week, it was an objectively bad start. You're entitled to a couple of bad starts every year, no question about it, even if you're an ace. Today, he wasn't bad. He had 10 strikeouts, right? The stuff looked good. He made a couple of mistakes. The Tigers, who are a hell of a baseball team, punished him. And yeah, he gave you 6. He gives up 3. That is the definition of a quality start. Was it his best? Nowhere close to his best. Was it bad? Nowhere close to his bad. I mean, that's a good start. I think most guys would love to be able to give you that start. If that's the low bar for Logan Webb, that says a lot about Logan Webb. But you look at him in the dugout afterwards, and he is just, his head's spinning because he knows this team goes as he goes. And at a certain point, he can only pull the wagon so much before he says, we got to get some of this baggage off the wagon. Like, you're putting too much on my shoulders here. And that's what it seems to be like for everybody. You're asking, because this team is scuffling, you're asking too much of players who shouldn't have this much weight on their shoulders. And yeah, when things were clicking, especially late in games early in the season, That's the kind of positive momentum that can get everything going in the right direction. But when it goes the other way, it can really hold you back from breaking through. And that's where the Giants are right now. We're going to see what Buster Posey's got up his sleeve here. This is the first real test of Buster as director of baseball operations. And neither you nor I can tell you how it's going to go. Right? He's been preaching patience. Patience is still very valuable. No negativity against patience whatsoever. Right? It's May 27th. We're not going to pretend as if the season is over. They're still in a very good spot, all things considered, because of that great start. And yeah, you're wearing it now, and we have every right, you, me, everybody on the line, we're going to get to you guys in just a second, every right to complain and whine and all these things. They're doing it. They're doing it in the team hotel right now. They're feeling it just as much as we are. It must suck to suck on offense night in, night out. But we're going to find out here how much patience Buster Posey has, how much deference he wants to give to his guys, and how much he wants to play into team chemistry and team bonding. Because we know that under the prior regime, about 42 roster moves would have been made over the last 10 days trying to find something one way or another. Buster hasn't done anything yet. That's probably the right way to go about it. But at some point, push has to come to shove. At some point, you have to look at your lineup and say, we don't have the dudes. Or this team can break out and make this very easy for Buster. But if this continues, I don't think that there's an alternative but to look at outside options, whether that be from your own system or on another team. And I don't know when that breaking point is for Buster. I know under the prior regime, that breaking point would have been after about 2 games. Maybe it would have been a matter of innings as opposed to games. Buster's going to be patient. Buster's going to trust his guys. But at some point, push does have to come to shove. And I think we're getting close to it, all things considered. And the Giants are going to have to do something here. They're going to have to do something. We already got a little bit of a taste with Bob Melvin trying to do something, getting Lamont Wade Jr. out of the lineup. Obviously, tonight's game isn't evidence one way or another if that was a good move, though I will say, Casey Schmidt's got a hell of a glove there at first. You like the glove. If you're going to get something, you might as well get a glove. If no one's going to hit at first base, you might as well get a glove over there. I know it's not a premier defensive position, but better than the nothing burger that Lamont Wade was giving you over the last couple of weeks, over the last couple of months. It even goes into last season. But you're struggling with Bailey. Tyler Fitzgerald is a shell of his former self. Yastrzemski's in a downturn. He'll come back up, and then he'll go back down. This is how Mike Yastrzemski works. He should be your 6-hitter. This is what a good 6-hitter looks like. Up and down. The highs are pretty high. The lows are pretty low. And you just hope that you're catching the wave at the right time. That's what a 6-hitter looks like. He's your leadoff guy right now. Elliot Ramos, listen, he was in a bit of a funk. I think today he had a couple pretty good at-bats. Elliot Ramos was one of the hottest hitters in baseball at the beginning of the month. So you feel fine about Elliot Ramos, but he's a streaky hitter too. He's going to have really high highs. And the lows maybe not as low as the lowest of lows, but they're pretty low. This guy is an all-star, but a one-time all-star. And we don't really know what he's all about. And we're gonna find out here. We're going to find out here. Flores, fantastic. Awesome. Jung-Hoo Lee, the at-bats haven't looked as good as of late, but Jung-Hoo gets a pass. He gets a pass until it starts looking really rough because he's still got a 781 OPS, right, for Jung-Hoo Lee. Chapman, he's working on it at the plate. He's working through some stuff. You hope that those adjustments lead to one of those hot streaks because when he's hot, he's MVP caliber, baby. With that glove and that bat, when it's on, he is MVP caliber. The problem is that exists for about 3 weeks, and then he's down for 2, and then it's up for 3, and then it's down for 2, and sometimes it's a month, and then he's a streaky hitter. So you don't mind having him bat second and then go down to 5. That's okay. That's okay. This is what we know. This is what you know you're getting with Matt Chapman. Adames, frankly, this is what he's always been. He's always been a streaky hitter. The Giants had to have. Last year does not disprove an entire career for Willy Adames. But it's got to be better than this because the low early this season was as low as it has gotten in his entire baseball career. And the high was marginally better than league average. And guess what? We're heading back down towards the low again. I get that you're coming into a new market. I get that you have the expectations of big money. I get that it is May 27th, right? We got 7 more years. So it's not as if you need to make a overarching statement. It's not as if you need to plant a flag on what Willy Adames is or isn't as a San Francisco Giant right here, right now. But first impressions matter, and this has been a pretty tough first impression for Willy Adames, who is unquestionably the worst Giants hitter this season, not named Patrick Bailey. Bailey gets a pass because he's got a gold glove behind the plate, but he's got a 624 OPS, Willy Adames. He is a bat-only shortstop. It's arguably the worst defensive shortstop in baseball, and he's got a 624 OPS this season. What is it you say you do here, Willie? I can appreciate his optimism. Can't relate, but I can appreciate his optimism. That's got to break through at some point. That has to get him to the other side of whatever this is at some point, because otherwise it comes across as a little corny. Casey Schmidt, you know what he's in there for. It's glove only. You hope that you get something out of the at-bats. Patrick Bailey, it's tough. Maybe a good at-bat today, and that single maybe gets him to the other side of this, but you're never expecting Patrick Bailey to be a stalwart of the lineup. And then Tyler Fitzgerald's power has disappeared. Cut down on the strikeout rate. What happens? Can't hit a homer. So that's your lineup, folks. And you look at this, and if it would continue on as it's going, or even getting a little bit better, if it continues on, you have to say, we got to make some changes. So it's going to be a big test for Buster Posey here as we are about to flip the calendar into June, where you have 2 months before the trade deadline. And action is starting to happen. You're starting to see some little tinkering trades around baseball right now. It's going to be a big ask of Buster Posey. How long are you willing to wait before you step in and make a move? How much patience do you have for a lineup that is not rewarding your patience right now? How much is chemistry worth if this is the result of the chemistry in your lineup? The Giants can start hitting, and that all goes away. But I could have said that 2 weeks ago. And here we are 2 weeks later saying the same thing. Seems as you all have a lot to say about this as well. We're going to go to the phone lines after this. 808 KNBR is the number. Do the Giants need to make a move today? What do you make of where this lineup is? What needs to change? Who do you believe in? All questions answered on the other side. Kurtenbach with you until 9 p.m. on the Sports Leader.
If nobody got me, I know Wilmer Flores got me. Can I get an amen for that?
From the O'Donnell Financial Group Sports Desk. Learn more at odfigroup.com. O'Donnell Financial Group, because planning is a process, not a product.
Giants drop another one. This one to the Tigers, 3-1 again. The offense struggling a little bit. Who better to talk to the morning show than the hitting coach, Pat Burrell, on how to get that fixed? You can find that interview and more on KNBR.com, thesportsleader.com, our YouTube channel. Keep it locked in here on the Leader for all your Giants stuff.
Giants fans. This is your hub to have your voice heard. Sports Phone KNBR. Streaming live on YouTube at KNBR 1045.
This is certainly the part of the order where one swing could really change this game as Flores lines one out to the gap in left center. That one is down for a hit. It splits the outfielders, rolls to the wall. Perez plays the carom, rounding third. Ramos on his way home. He'll score without a throw. It's an RBI double for Wilmer Flores. The Giants have broken through in the ninth. Now it's a 3-1 game.
And that was about it. I mean, imagine doing that at any other point in the baseball game. I feel bad for Wilmer. He had a home run robbed. You don't have to jump. Is it really a robbing? That's another question for another day. But he at least got into one, and then he has that nice double and drives home another run. That is something he has been wont to do this season. It ain't Wilmer Flores' fault, folks. But one man, especially one Wilmer Flores, cannot be tasked with carrying an entire offense. And as of late, it seems as if, again, that's what's being asked. And I just want to remind everyone, we're talking about Wilmer Flores. Like, not Bryce Harper or Aaron Judge, or we're talking about Wilmer Flores.
Can I get an amen for that?
The one and only for the San Francisco Giants right now. Doesn't seem awesome. Just doesn't seem awesome. They need their big money guys, Matt Chapman, Willie Adames, to start coming through. I mean, you can add Jung-Hoo Lee into the mix if you want. They need those guys to start hitting, because defense and pitching, it can get you to a certain point, and it's gotten them this far. But this is still a league where you need to drive in runs. It's not a dead ball era. We're lucky it's not a juiced ball era, but it's not a dead ball era either. All right, phone lines are absolutely incandescent this evening. Understandably so. Unlike the Giants bats, the phone lines are hot. Let's go to Peter in Oakland. Peter, you're on the leader.
Hey, how you doing tonight?
Oh, I mean, I had it was a tough watch. Not going to lie. It was a tough watch tonight. And they've been a lot of tough watches lately. So I'm okay.
I'm with you right there, brother. I like a lot of what you said and agree particularly with Willie Adames. He's there for his bat. He's not there for his glove. And he needs to start hitting and hitting soon. And if that doesn't happen, frankly, within the next month, I'd be surprised if we wouldn't see some moves made. Matt Chapman, and I will always maintain this, is probably the best third baseman I have ever seen. I've been watching baseball my entire life. If Matt Chapman never got a hit and never got on base, I'd still be okay with him being in the lineup because he is that good at third base. One other thing that I wanted to discuss, and it's a pattern that I'm starting to notice over these last 9 games, is the Giants' quality of at-bats with not just runners in scoring position, but just runners on base in general. One example today in the 7th, Adames gets the hit, and he has been putting together some hits lately, so it's good to see. Casey Schmidt comes to the plate, sees one pitch, lines out, and that's it. In that situation, that is not a good at-bat. His job is to get on base, move that runner over. I mean, it's 2 outs, so he needs to get on base, either a hit or a walk. But swinging at the first pitch in that situation is not good awareness by a hitter. And that's something I've noticed with the Giants over this last stretch. It's a lack of awareness at the plate of what they should be doing, whether it's trying to move the runner over, get on base, drive the runner in, whatever the case may be. The at-bats do not indicate that they have a good sense of what their task at the plate is.
I'll give you that, Peter, and appreciate the call. It kind of goes along with something I alluded to lightly earlier. Like, it doesn't feel as if there's much of a game plan. And perhaps this is just an overarching indictment on the modern game of baseball, where everybody's up there just trying to hit a 3-run homer with nobody on base every time. But when you look at the Giants and the lack. I mean, first off, they don't have very many runners on base in general. So maybe it's just small sample size theater when it comes to bad situational hitting. We're moving guys over, kind of doing the small stuff. But let's go to another aspect of the game and sort of the hidden runs that you can find when you don't have a good offense going. I know that this is not a particularly speedy lineup, but one stolen base in the last 2 weeks, it's just not good enough. It just isn't. You need to find places to be aggressive. You need to find places to make things happen, because you shouldn't expect anything to happen given the way things have been going over the last 9-10 games, and honestly a larger sample as well, save for the one Wilmer Flores game. Over this last couple weeks stretch, you shouldn't expect good things to happen with the bat in your players' hands. So what can you do to make the job easier for the batter, right? So instead of needing a double, what can you do to make him only need a single? Or what can you do to make him not even need to get a hit, but instead, be able to sacrifice fly or just stand there and take a couple pitches because one might go to the backstop and you can score a run anyway? What can you do in the other areas of the game to advance? Could you play better defense? You can always play better defense. Can you pitch better? You can always pitch better. We know what those, two things are. And honestly, the Giants have been not half bad at either of them. You can point out the negative, you can point out the positive, but this is still the best bullpen in the National League as of late. They still have enough starting pitching, even with the injury to Justin Verlander, to where you should feel good about winning more games than you lose. And the defense is good enough to not be an impediment to winning. I don't know if it's going to be the reason you win games, but it's certainly not an impediment to winning, even with Adames at shortstop right now. Overall, I just look at it and I just don't think they're being aggressive enough. I don't think they're pushing the envelope enough in the rare opportunities they seem to have to score runs. And maybe that's them just being afraid of losing those small opportunities, but no risk it, no biscuit, in my opinion. And I'd like to see Bob Melvin maybe channel some of that anger he had for Tony Randazzo today. Fair enough. We can get into that a little bit later. And maybe start pushing some buttons on, hey, let's get aggressive on the base pass here. Let's go do something, because this is not a league where, the sacrifice bunt is still in vogue or even really accepted much anymore. And yes, we can always appreciate, hitting it to the right side when you got a runner on second, but ultimately you're going up there and you're trying to do damage and you're trying to get on a pitch. And if that's the first pitch or the 12th pitch of an at-bat, you just need one to get into the spot you're looking for, and you need to drive it. Obviously, Casey Schmidt didn't do that today, but Casey Schmidt's not in there for his bat. He's in there for his glove. And maybe this is a bigger overarching issue for the Giants, but they have a lot of one-way players. They've gone full Golden State Warriors. They got a lot of guys who can give you really good defense, but they're worthless when they're on offense. And then, hey, the guys who can hit, well, can't really play him on offense. Well, Lamont Wade, that's a guy who you don't really want out in the field, so you want him DHing, but then Wilmer's got a DH. And I've been told now repeatedly over the last couple of weeks that Encarnacion is going to save this team's offense. I like Encarnacion. I'm not sure that he's that level of a player, but he's not somebody you want out in the field. And all things considered, you have a lot of one-way players. In the case of Willy Adames right now, you have a no-way player. So it might be a fundamental issue of the roster. The Giants are not alone, certainly, in running into this issue. But this is not something that encourages anyone to believe that this team is going to be any different than they've been in recent seasons, because they just don't have enough hitters. They just don't have enough hitters. All right, let's see here. Let's go to Dennis in San Jose. Dennis, you're on the leader.
Let me tell you, they set a franchise record with 25 hits in one game this year. They got 9 runs in another game in one inning. And the thing is they can hit, but they're not hitting. And what worries me is if they continue doing what they're doing, and they're not even going to make the playoffs. And they got a team. They're running against a lot of good pitching too, and our pitching's good too. But sometimes they got other guys on the other team that are a little bit better than we are.
Well, I think that the Giants' bats right now are making every pitcher they go up against look pretty good right now. And listen, it is May 27th, and I think it's totally fair to worry about the playoffs, right? It does feel as if that nice cushion that they built up with all those close wins, and we knew that was somewhat of a fleeting enterprise they had going on there. It does feel like that cushion's slipping away, and that they're reverting back to their 500 baseball ways, and that might even actually be a little bit worse if this stretch continues any further. But when you don't hit, every pitcher looks like Jack Flaherty looked tonight. And yes, you're going to complain about the umpire and saying, oh, the strike zone was so wide. Well, I saw Logan Webb get 10 strikeouts tonight. Do you think that was strictly on his own merit? He had a great game. Don't get me wrong. Logan Webb's a hell of a pitcher. He could be a front runner for Cy Young in the National League. I'm not saying Logan Webb stinks and that he was bailed out, but 10 strikeouts is a little bit abnormal, and it must be nice to have a big strike zone. I would rather have a big strike zone than getting pinched. Right? If you're getting pinched, that ruins the game. A big strike zone, guys are up there swinging. They know they got to put the bat on the ball to make something happen. Pitchers are getting strikeouts. There's a lot more events when you got a big strike zone. So I got no problem with it, and I have no problem with Bob Melvin standing up for his guys, trying to put a little bit of fire under their heinies, saying, hey, we got to get something going. Sometimes your manager getting tossed out, even if it is kind of a joke, right? That it wasn't one-sided tonight, but sometimes, getting thrown out, making a scene out of something, sometimes it sparks something in your team. Didn't appear to be the case tonight. I get where you're coming from. It does feel like the playoffs are slipping away, but I would like everyone to note we're a third of the way through the season. It's frustrating when you watch this team. It's frustrating because you don't know how they're going to break out of it. You don't have that institutional feeling or that institution of solid at bats where you say, hey, just wait. It's all going to turn around, because you look at X, Y, and Z in your lineup and say they can't keep going like this forever. You don't have that with the Giants. So you're just hoping that the tide turns, and you can't really say when it's going to turn. And that gets a little dire at times. It will turn. I promise it will turn. The question is, how long will it turn for? And what can the Giants do when it does turn? So long as, of course, the defense and the pitching stay where it's at. Let's go to Mike in San Francisco. Mike, you're on the leader.
Dieter, good evening.
Good evening.
Just wanted to start off by saying the Giants have a record that befits a strategy of trying to steal bases for the first 3 weeks of the season, and Bob Melvin abandoned that after he claims. And I want to pause right there. I don't want to throw salt, because guys started getting caught a little bit, and he backed off the gas pedal. This team, if I'm looking at coaching and players, is built for defense and pitching. It's not built for hitting and speed on the base pass. And in our ballpark, and I don't want to emphasize too much on that, but in our ballpark, it's never been that way. We've never had too many people commenting on how to hit for this organization on a telecast level. Hunter Pence is the guy that comes to mind. And if you can name one besides that joined the broadcast, I'd be
no. I'm with you. Certainly. I mean, not to throw salt, but I don't know if Kipe and FP are folks that we're turning to for great hitting advice, right?
No. FP, he was a hitter. He played good defense.
I mean, they're both great pros. I mean, Kipe has one career home run. I get where you're coming from. I'm not sure really though what the quality of baseball players the broadcasters were has much to do with the team on the diamond hitting. That's not the coaching staff. That's for our entertainment, right?
True. What I'm saying is the team's built around defense and pitching, and that's what we're getting. And
but is that good enough? I mean, is that still enough of a foundation? Is that enough in this modern era? Because you think about the glory days of the San Francisco Giants, and let's just use this century. You have prime steroid era Giants, and that's a conversation for a different time. And then, and that team could hit the bejesus out of the baseball. And then you have, in a overtly dead ball era, 3 titles in the course of 5 years behind pitching and defense, unquestionably, but in an era when no one was hitting. And the Giants were simply the best at pitching and defense in an era when that was emphasized by the quality of the baseball. And the 2 times the Giants have made the playoffs since then, 2016 and 2021, hell of a year, but it didn't really sniff anything close to a championship. And the rest of the time, they've been sort of leaning back on pitching and defense because, yes, the ballpark demands it. But as I said earlier, 81 games are in a different ballpark. And that model for the Marine layer maybe will give you 90 games a year. Maybe if it's even fewer because it doesn't always show up in San Francisco. And we are clearly in an era that is unquestionably stats driven, but it is all about doing damage. Who on this team even relates to Riley Green, who himself is a streaky hitter, but had a 115 mile per hour exit velocity today? Like, who's doing serious damage to the baseball on the San Francisco Giants right now? Sometimes Chapman does. He'll get into it, no question about it. I think Ramos can do it, though he's not certainly the highest end. Like, who's out here absolutely hitting the cover off the ball? I can't give you one that stacks up with the best of the best in baseball, much less the 3 or 4 that you would need to compete with the Padres or the Dodgers in the National League West. Hell, the Diamondbacks, right? Eugenio Suarez had 4 home runs in a game this year. They lost, but he still had 4 home runs. They have Corbin Carroll on that team. This team's offense is not good enough. And right now it is as bad as it's been all season. But I'm not sure that the highs are going to counterbalance the lows. And the pitching and defense is fantastic. And I think bullpens win divisions. And I think I might have to change my tune on that belief that I've held for 20-something years, because this bullpen is absolutely lights out. And this team is still in second place. And they're fading right before our eyes. So I appreciate the call, Mike. I think it's totally fair. Perhaps, and this is something that you can't change it all in one off season. I wouldn't expect Buster Posey to do that and to make drastic changes to a team that is right there on the cusp. But this is a big question for Buster as we move forward in his regime. And I'm talking on a macro level. Is pitching and defense enough? Yes, it is a fair thing to lean on that with this baseball team. And these are the results we're going to get. You're hoping that you win a couple more than you lose. But is pitching and defense enough in modern Major League Baseball to be the caliber of team that the San Francisco Giants don't just want to be, but that they should be, given the market size, given the tradition of this team, given the money that they have, given that they're rivals, and we can go double south or we can go to Arizona, but given that the other 3 teams in the division that are competitive, because I won't include the Rockies, who are certainly not, but given where those other 3 teams are the Giants good enough to compete with those teams strictly on the merits of pitching and defense? And I would argue right now, while the standings say something different, that no, they're not. And if they don't get some serious improvement from guys like Ramos, from guys like Adames, from guys like Chapman, and not all of those are cut from the same cloth, from even guys like Lee, if they don't get some serious improvement there, I do think that the standings will reflect that this team is behind. This is still a hitter-first league, especially in an era where pitching is being less and less emphasized, at least starting pitching is being less and less emphasized, easy for me to say, by the day. Look at the team the Giants are playing right now in the Tigers. The Tigers got by with, I'm not kidding, 1 starting pitcher for the final 50 games last year. They had 1 starting pitcher, and everything else was bullpen. And when everyone's out there just going full throttle, all gas, no brakes, all the time now, as we move forward into the 2030s to think all that way out, what is the starting pitcher going to look like? Major League Baseball is legitimately having conversations right now about fundamentally changing the rules of the game to incentivize pitchers to stay in the game longer, starting pitchers. So pitching and defense, what good is it if you can't hit the bejesus out of the baseball, if you can't tear the cover off the baseball? Because that's what this era is demanding right now. And frankly, I don't see that changing anytime soon. unless they want to do some crazy stuff to the ball, in which case, deaden that bad boy up, because that would be all about the Giants. Let's go to Safe at third in San Francisco. Safe at third, you're on the leader.
How you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing better than the Giants lineup is right now. I'll give you that. I'm happy to talk to you.
Let me get this out. I'm an old timer. My first game was 1953.
There you go.
Giants and Dodgers at the Coogan's Bluff.
I know.
Let me say this. Yes, we have. Let me give you a lineup. Let me give you a for instance lineup right now. Fitzgerald, Yaz, Lee, 1, 2, 3. That's your fastest people in the lineup right now. They should be up and stealing bases. Then you bring up the power. Ramos next. Chapman. Bring down Adames. Get him out of there because he's not being effective.
Well, he's already hitting sixth.
Yeah. Oh, he is? Okay, great.
Yeah.
Then you got Flores and then Bailey, the catcher. Now, this is where the problem is. Your first baseman. They're not hitting a tick off a hippo's butt. They are our first baseman. Now, Wade, God love him. He's a fielder. Schmidt is a fielder. And Matos, he's only hitting 147. But our first baseman is killing us with the bat. No bat.
Yeah.
Encarnacion, when he comes back, I want his bat. He doesn't have to play the field. I want his bat because he does connect. If you got
well, then where are you going to play Wilmer? Where are you going to play Wilmer if you want Encarnacion at DH?
You can put Wilmer at first because our first baseman.
They don't want Will. But the thing is, they can't play Wilmer at first because Wilmer broke down last year playing the field, so they moved him full-time to DH, and he's hitting the bejesus. He's the only one who hits. And a lot of the reason that he's hitting, at least according to the coaching staff, because Wilmer will never admit this, he's too prideful a man, and I appreciate that. Wilmer's the best. But the coaching staff believes that Wilmer's been able to hit the way that he's been able to hit because he isn't being asked to play the field, and that his legs at this point in his career can't maintain play in the field. And I gotta think that they're right about that. He's the one guy who's hitting. I wouldn't touch Wilmer. I wouldn't touch DH. But it does come back to the problem we were talking about here, Safe. Like, they don't have enough two-way players. They're the Warriors.
Let me finish this up. So you got a first baseman who's not hitting the ball.
Right.
You got a man who's coming off of injury and Encarnacion. Like you say, well, where are we going to play him? But look at the standings. You mentioned a lot about the standings.
Yeah.
Now, if the Dodgers were 47 and whatever, yeah, that'll be a serious, God, we got to do something. But they're only 3 games ahead of us. Yankees are only 3 games ahead of us.
The Yankees got nothing to do with this.
No. Listen what I'm saying. We're as far as all this hitting and how bad we are, they're not doing much better than we are. When you look at the wins and losses, they're not. Dodgers are not doing much better than we are. They're 33 and 20.
They got they got
much better. Huh?
But this is a lull for the Dodgers, right? Like the Dodgers haven't pitched well at all because all of their arms started the season on the injured list. And they're still 13 games over 500 while playing by their standard like crap, right? This is as bad as the Dodgers can be. The Padres, by the way, on top of the Giants in the standings right now. That might change tonight. But the Padres, they don't have Yu Darvish. They're figuring it out with their starting pitching. Michael King just went on the IL, all this stuff. The Giants have already tapped into their little magic moment, right? Every team's going to have a nice run. Every team's going to have a stretch of time in the season. This is good teams, bad teams, whatever. My White Sox have already won 17 games this year. The magic might have already been lost on the south side of Chicago. That might be all they can get. The Rockies haven't had it yet. I guarantee you they're going to have a week where everything goes right for them. Have the Giants already had their magic run? Because when you look at all the close games that come from behind wins, the stuff that generally evens out over the course of 162, which is why they play 162, a lot of that got front-loaded. And that's why I think it's so frustrating for folks watching this offense look anemic. Because, they have scored 239 runs. But they have 21 runs in the last 2 weeks, right? It seems as if all of that magic... And you need a little bit of magic. There's going to be some magic every year. It seems as if all the magic has already been used up by this Giants team. And now we're looking at the other end of it. And a lot of 500 baseball might be as good as it gets. And that's frustrating. I think that's frustrating. And it's on the Giants to disprove that. It's on the Giants to make that 5-5 in the last 10 games on the standings column, which it's been like that for 2 weeks now. It's on them to turn that into a 7-3. Because I think right now, if you were to place some bets, if we were to take a poll, and maybe we should, if you were to say what's more likely next week, 7-3 or 3-7, I think Giants fans right now would say 3-7. I think you'd hope for 7-3. Of course you would. Why wouldn't you? But I think looking at everything as it's laid out right now, I think 3-7 seems more likely. And I think 500 baseball, we've had our fill. Pick a direction. And right now this team is kind of floating in the middle. It just doesn't have enough bats. Appreciate the call. Let's tap in on the Encarnacion thing on the other side of the break. Kurtenbach with you until 9 p.m. 808 KNBR is the number if you want to get in. Hanging out on The Sports Leader.
Giants fans, this is your hub to have your voice heard. Sports Phone KNBR. Streaming live on YouTube at KNBR 1045.
The plan is definitely to get him back, and he can play first base. He can play outfield. You know, it's a big bat, hits the ball extremely hard. We think there's legitimate upside. He's a fantastic person, teammate. He's kind of a gentle giant. So a lot of people in that clubhouse rooting for him, you know, a pretty exciting major league player here. You know, we're anxious to get him back. He's going to get some at-bats here in Arizona. And I think he's eligible to come off the 60 on the 23rd. But we'll see how it goes in Arizona and hopefully have him back soon.
Zach Manassian, Giants GM, on Gerard Encarnacion, on whom the entire season seems to be pivoting on. That's a tough scene. By the way, a report from our friend Alan Stiles up there in Sacramento. He's on 1140. He spent some time with the River Cats. Gerard Encarnacion just made an error at first that led to run scoring. But then he proceeded to hit one of the hardest balls I've ever seen hit on a line drive slide oppo taco out of the ballpark. So that's the Gerard Encarnacion experience. At least he can hit. At least he can hit. But I don't think he can play first. They'll play him there. I don't think he can play first. And the Giants' issue of having another one-way player continues. But if this guy can hit, I'll take the L. I'll take the L because at a certain point, the Giants don't need any more defense. They need somebody who can hit. And Gerard Encarnacion, I don't know if he can actually hit or not, but I do know this. He swings the bat very fast, which means that if he makes contact, it should go very fast the opposite direction. I'm willing to take my chances. I'm also willing to take my chances here with Roy and San Leandro, who's been patiently waiting here on the leader. Roy, the floor is yours.
Hey, Kurt, how you doing? How's it going?
Oh, I mean, I'm doing great. I'm feeling, we're getting there. I'm excited that the Giants have a quick turnaround tomorrow in the sense that don't have to stew on this one too long. I feel like I've emptied the tank, and what do you got for me?
Well, your opening monologue was spot on. I just wanted to say that, it's, I say over the last, 3.5 years or so, the Giants, it's an organizational thing. Well, the Giants put too much emphasis on pitching and defense instead of timely hitting. Okay, for example, everybody like to talk about, when they won those 3 championships and all like that. Well, you got to keep in mind they had Ishikawa, the Panda, little guys came up, and then you had cast-offs from other teams. Like that big giant guy that they got from Washington. I can't think his name. They called him the Monster. Right.
Yeah,
okay. Right. Well, okay, right. What I'm saying is that, they merged those, and those guys learned how to hit in the minor leagues. And that's the reason I say that it's an organizational thing. Now, don't misunderstand me, Kurt. Much as me and you've talked in the past, I mean, you could look at the Giants and you could see how good, just like Christian Beck. Okay, not just him, but those other pitchers the Giants have brought up. You can marvel at them and say, boy, he's good, after he might get a 1, 2, 3 out or something like that. And then, and then you can look at Schmidt and you could look at Fitzgerald and you can see these guys are not bad. But what I'm saying, in versus what the Tigers have done and what the Cardinals have done is that they develop those position players and just glue them out there. And right. Okay, just like the Cardinals won 14 games in a row or something like that. Well, they let those players go out there. They learned them how to hit and stuff like that. But it starts at the top, in the organization. And what I'm saying is that the Giants just haven't done that. I mean, like on KNBR, they come on here, they talk about nothing but pitching. Oh, boy, he can this, he can that. Well,
to be fair, the team can pitch. I'll give them that. They can pitch. I'd be wanting to talk about the things that they can do as opposed to the things that they don't want to do. But, I'm wired different. We know that by now.
Right. Yeah, I know that. And so what I'm saying is that they need to go out, do their homework, try to get some good hitting instructors for each, to go up and down the organization to teach these guys. And Bob Melvin, needs to start learning how to, in situations, to have these guys to lay down some bunts too, to get them over, to see if we can go ahead on and get something going, get a rally going or something like that. But anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and let somebody else on. Curtis, always.
I appreciate you, Roy. I appreciate you keeping it real, Roy. We've reached the they need to lay down some bunts portion of the show. I knew it was coming. I didn't know it'd be from Roy. But yes, we have reached the this team needs to bunt its way to a good offense. I just want to quickly note, when we talk about sort of the days of past and all those great Giants teams that won championships, 2010, they had a negative 31 offensive WAR. In 2012, they actually were 7th in baseball when it came to overall offense. They had a WRC plus, and I can appreciate that 99% of you don't know and shouldn't know what WRC plus means, but it's a kind of a catch-all metric for hitting that makes 100 league average on a historic realm. 7th best in baseball in 2012 was 1% better than average. I mean, just what an average baseball team should have done. Baseball was so bad offensively in 2012 that the Giants looked like a top 10 offense. And in 2014, the San Francisco Giants, 9th best offense in baseball, according to runs. They were 1% worse than a league average offense. If you were to just take it and normalize it to 100, they had a -5 offensive WAR. That is the teams that won titles. So I can, again, understand perhaps why institutionally this organization, over a decade ago, it should be noted, thinks that pitching and defense wins titles, because it did 3 times. But you got to take a look at the landscape and realize that things have dramatically changed since then. And basically every other team in baseball, save for the Colorado Rockies, have made note of that. And the San Francisco Giants certainly don't have a fiscal impediment, not a true one at least, to morphing their roster, be it major league or overarching roster of players, including minor leagues, to be more offensive driven. And yes, the ballpark certainly demands a certain type of hitter, perhaps maybe more of a doubles hitter than a deep fly ball hitter. But I would like to note it's certainly not as bad. I'm not in any way saying that it is as bad. But in San Diego and Los Angeles, they get the marine layer at night too, right? It is not what it is at Oracle Park with the Winds. I get it. It's pretty bad in San Diego, but it is not that bad in Los Angeles or San Diego. And yet still, they seem to be able to hit home runs. And yet still, they seem to have a lot of power in their lineups. And if you do have a great ballpark to pitch in, maybe you don't need to put so much emphasis on finding great pitchers, because the ballpark will help you out. You need to maybe put that emphasis more in the thing that is going to be harder to do. But these are not questions for me and you to answer. These are questions for Buster Posey to answer. And I think that the challenge that Posey faces here is that, okay, the honeymoon, whatever that was worth, is now over. It was always going to be over, regardless of if they were winning or losing, on the basis of now you have results on which to work off of. When it was all abstract, it's Buster Posey, franchise legend, probably the most beloved Giant, certainly this century, right? Because of, Barry and all the off the field stuff. And Buster is the beloved one. He is the prodigal son, came home to save the franchise, right? But now you have to actually do the job, right? The faith in Buster thing can persist. That's fine. No problem with it at all. But now we have a sample size of what this team can do. And now we're going to see what Buster can do when he has been presented with pretty clear evidence. And let's see how long he was willing to wait before he feels the evidence is clear one way or another. But now that we have a sample size here, now that we have a third of a season, soon we'll get to half a season. Once we have that, it's going to be incumbent on the director of baseball operations to do some tinkering, to make some moves, to look at what he has and say, how can we get better? And this is on a macro level and it's on a micro level. But now it's on Buster to get this thing right. And I think we can point to, even though the standings say one thing, right now it doesn't feel like this thing is right. I think that we all have enough of an innate sense of what is and isn't right when it comes to the sport of baseball to understand that this thing feels off kilter. And the Giants have a great opportunity to correct that. But ultimately, it is on Buster Posey and the players on the diamond to get this thing right, because the tough part for Buster, he inherited a team after years of mediocrity, and we're all just sort of over mediocrity. If it had bottomed out and it was god-awful, what would be happening now, no matter what the offense looks like, would be incredible. But this looks a lot like mediocre, and we've just come out of effectively 7 years of mediocrity. We just can't do it anymore. We can't do it anymore. Is it fair to Buster? Probably not. Is it his problem to deal with now? Absolutely. And it's certainly on the players on the diamond to make his job even easier, because it looks like it's going to be a pretty tough one here as we approach the trade deadline in a matter of weeks. Let's be clear about this. I know it's 2 months away, but that is a matter of weeks in earnest. All right. We're going to talk to Jeff Young of Around the Foghorn about this Giants baseball team and what is and what isn't working. We're going to talk some 49ers football in the 8 o'clock hour. I'm looking forward to that immensely. And then I have a basketball take that I got to get out there. I got to get out there. We'll do all of that in the coming, let's call it, hour and 20 minutes here on The Sports Leader.
Giants fans, this is your hub to have your voice heard. Sports Phone KNBR. Streaming live on YouTube at KNBR 1045.
We're back with you, the sports leader, Dieter Kurtenbach, until 9 p.m. Sports Phone KNBR is the name of the show, and we are very lucky to be joined by the great Jeff Young of Around the Foghorn to talk some Gigantes baseball. Jeff, how you doing this evening?
I'm doing well, Dieter. How are you? Thanks for having me on the show.
Appreciate you taking the time. Always enjoy your insights, and hopefully we can spread the love because, well, this team needs a little love right now. Let's start with the big news going into this game tonight. Lamont Wade Jr. sitting against a righty. That seems like a big deal to me. What did you make of that move?
Yeah, I mean, it seems like it could be, the Giants to reach the point where they could be looking at making, a move in the lineup, whether it's a short-term or a long-term change. Lamont Wade Jr., I mean, he's struggling this year. I think that's been pretty well talked about, but, he finished the second half of last season on a pretty rough note as well. So it feels like his struggles this year are a continuation of last year. So I think the Giants have been very patient, but it feels like their patience is wearing thin. Casey Schmidt is at first base, and I think he's going to get a little bit of time before Gerard Encarnacion returns.
Well, Encarnacion is a guy who has played some first base. He has 2 games, a whole 2 games of major league play at first base, 67 in the minors, at least from what I could tell on his baseball reference page, which is difficult to decipher. I'll leave it at that. He has played for a lot of teams over the years. It doesn't seem to be particularly good at first base, Gerard Encarnacion, but to get his bat into the lineup, and Bob Melvin has been promoting Gerard Encarnacion, say, hey, we're about to get Encarnacion back. We're about to get Encarnacion back. Does it feel like this is now his job at first base? Because it feels like that's a pretty easy way of getting him into the lineup without messing up Wilmer and the DH role that they want to play him in so that he stays healthy. Like, is Encarnacion the next first baseman for the Giants?
Yeah, I mean, it feels like he's going to get a pretty extended look at first base, and I know his defense might be shaky there, but first base is still a bat first position. So if he's hitting and he's hitting well, that's really is going to be what sticks out. So the trade deadline is coming up in a couple of months. I think the Giants want to get a pretty good read on what Encarnacion can do. I mean, he flashed that really impressive power last year, but his overall numbers were still below average. Right. So I think they just want to get a read of what he can do, what he can offer to the lineup. First base has been such an extreme soft spot that I think the Giants have to do something. And for now, Encarnacion probably is going to get the bulk of the playing time, especially with Lamont Wade Jr., struggling as much as he has.
Are we sleeping on Schmidt a little bit? It does seem as if he's in a better place with the bat, and we know that the glove's going to play across the board. Are we maybe sleeping on Schmidt as the solution there?
He's got some power upside. If he hits in the next couple of days, I don't see why he wouldn't get more playing time at first base. He does have a little bit of versatility. I don't think Encarnacion has as much versatility. He can play a couple of different positions,
right? But
I don't know if you want him out there in the field all that much outside of first base. So I think Schmidt's still going to find his way into the lineup, especially against left-handed pitching. But if he hits over the next week, if they give him a little bit of a look, there's no reason why he can't get a couple of extra bats at first base when Encarnacion returns.
It's interesting that I don't disagree, obviously, with giving Wade a day or a week or a month or a pink slip here. But it is interesting that the Giants are to, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but to go off of what you said a little bit earlier, like their patience has somewhat run out here. And again, not in any way disagreeing with anything they're saying, but they have been also preaching patience kind of across the board, especially as it pertains to this offense. What do you read into the fact that unquestionably Wade should be kind of the first guy to get the blunt end of the stick here, but what do you make of the Giants sort of losing patience and saying, okay, it is time to take a look at something else, or it is time to make a move? Because they are outwardly preaching patience for a lot of players right now.
They are, and I think that's a good thing. That's a good way to build trust with the players. You know, the players don't have to feel too much pressure that if they have a bad game or two, that they're going to be optioned back to AAA or relegated to the bench. But there's a pretty good sample. If you look at Lamont Wade Jr.'s profile, I mean, not only does he have,
just a woeful
533 OPS, 1 home run, 14 RBI. The expected numbers don't really suggest much of a turnaround. So, I mean, the Giants have been very patient here. I think in the case of Wade Jr., and the fact that first base is really an offensive position, they need to find a way to get some more offense out of the lineup, and first base is probably one of the most vulnerable spots. So I feel like, they've been patient, and that's been great, but they also need to find a way to get some more offense into the lineup.
How much of that patience do you think is just a counterbalance from an organization that I don't think it's subjective. I think it's objectively was impatient and made a lot of roster moves and sort of having to recalibrate for the players and the coaches even on the roster. Like, hey, we're not quitting on you guys, and maybe having a bit too much patience as to sort of counterbalance what was going on for the 7 years prior.
Yeah, I've thought about that too, and that they don't want to appear as if they're operating like they have in the very recent past. And with that patience, there's been some good to come from it. Landon Roop had kind of a rough couple of starts at the end of April. He's really turned it around in May and turned into a really nice pitcher, and I think the Giants deserve credit for being patient there. But I do think there's a little bit of an intentional effort by the Giants to kind of shift the pendulum back to, hey, we're not, we believe in the guys that we have, right, and we're not going to be reactive to your performance if you have a bad game or two. So I feel like there is a little bit of an effort being made by the front office and the coaching staff not to give up on guys too quickly, because that was certainly the impression that the prior regime gave off, and that's a fair point.
I do want to put a pin in the Roop conversation, come back to him in just a second, but you mentioned the trade deadline a little bit earlier. Are there some names that you think the Giants should be keeping an eye on that maybe we should be keeping an eye on too from around baseball?
Yeah, I mean, the guy I keep coming back to is Rhys Hoskins of the Milwaukee Brewers. He's off to a really nice start this year, and the Brewers are 27-28 in the NL Central. They're in fourth place right now, or tied for third place. They're a smart organization. They're quick to make moves. If they don't feel like they have a chance, they're going to make, they're going to find ways to move guys that they can move, especially Hoskins, who has a mutual option in 2026. So I think my guess is that they'll probably want to try and offload some of that salary, some of the remaining amount that's owed to him, to a different team. And Hoskins is hitting well, so he could be somebody in demand. He makes a lot of sense for the Giants, not just because they had interest in him a couple of years ago. He's a local guy and
Sacramento,
he
right?
certainly fits it. Yeah.
So he's in he's A's territory now, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Not that they'll admit it. It worked out great the last time that the Giants went and got a Brewer bat. So obviously you want to double down on that. Of course, I am joking. Roop, what do you make of his season so far? Young pitcher. I don't necessarily. He faded at the end of spring, and then had that kind of rough go in April there a little bit. The Giants clearly really believe in him. Obviously, the kick change is working out great for him. There's a lot of things to like. I can see why they have such confidence in him, but they're also in the advantageous situation, the Giants are, of having a bunch of other young arms. And like they chose Roop over Birdsong, and they chose Roop over Harrison. And I'm going to get into those guys in a little bit, but what do you make of Roop and where he's at? And has he backed up the Giants' belief so far in your estimation?
Oh, I think he has. I mean, he has a 3.63 ERA through the first 10 starts of the year. So they're about 1/3 of the way through the year, and he's put up some pretty good numbers. I think the thing that stands out that Roop needs to show improvement on is just having a little more confidence in the third pitch, whether that's the changeup, which he uses against left-handed hitters, or it's a cutter. Hitters know that he has a pretty good sinker curveball combination. They know when they're in a 2-strike count, they're probably going to see the curveball because that's what he uses to steal strikes. So I think being able just to mix in a different look is going to be pretty important for his development. So I think that the Giants have been good to be patient with him. At the end of the day, though, he has a pretty low innings threshold. I think he's never thrown more than 107 and a third innings in a season as a pro. He's already at 50 plus. So I mean, this is a guy who, I think they'll have to look at managing his workload. Maybe 5, 10, maybe even 15 starts down the road in a perfect world. But he's done a nice job so far.
I've seen some teams like the Marlins are kind of famous for, we want to find out as early as possible what you have and what you don't have if we're going to have to worry about the workload aspect of things, because there's always the possibility of injury. And so if you sort of try to reverse engineer it from the end of the season, you end up in a situation where you get nothing. Whereas if you start them and then, hey, okay, we got to shut them down earlier than we thought, you can always manipulate it. And there's always the possibility that just, they're a pitcher. They're throwing 90 something miles per hour. Their UCLs aren't meant to take it at that level. Like they might have some time baked in anyway. So got to agree with how the Giants are going about it. And clearly he's been a very positive development. I just find it really interesting with all these other arms. And let's go to another one of them with Kyle Harrison. What did you make of his start on Saturday? And are you at all surprised? I was a little bit surprised that with 2 off days during this road trip that the Giants didn't try to stack Logan Webb and get 2 starts on this road trip. And instead it looks like they're going to go with Harrison again in Miami. What did you make of Harrison on Saturday? And what should we expect from him moving forward with Verlander out? And we don't really know how long that will take.
Yeah, I mean, Harrison looked good in his first start. I think he went 4 innings, gave up 2 earned. I think it was on a home run.
Yep.
Really, I feel like it's kind of the same scouting report as a couple of seasons ago. The control has improved, that's for sure. His fastball, he has a better feel for his fastball. But he needs to more confidently mix in a secondary pitch, whether that's the slurve that he has. He threw that a couple of times, or the changeup. He didn't use that quite as much against the Nationals over the weekend. But the fastball, I mean, it plays. It gets a lot of swinging strikes. He knows how to use it up in the zone. It's just a really tough pitch to hit. He throws from a low 3/4 arm slot. It has that righty in action. It gets in on hitters pretty quickly, and he's got his velocity back up. So pretty nice start so far. It's, his ability to mix in a secondary pitch or 2 is probably going to determine what type of pitcher he is. But there's been some positive improvements this year with his velocity coming back, with his control being acceptable. So I mean, it's good that he's going to get another start on this road trip. He's going to face, I think it's the Marlins coming up. Yes. So that feels like a pretty nice landing spot for him. And Verlander is going to be out, and I think they only expect him to miss a couple of starts. And at that point, they'll have to look at how Harrison's doing. If they need to move him back to the bullpen could use another left-handed reliever. I don't like that role for him, but that's kind of where the need is. It'll depend on how quickly Verlander can return.
Everybody's a reliever these days. You're just a reliever who's asked to give you 5-6 innings at the start of a game now, but you're still a reliever, and relievers are starters, and it's all very nebulous. You mentioned, obviously, this is the fundamental crux of the point as we talked to the great Jeff Young of Around the Foghorn. His fastball velo, and I still can remember his first start as a major leaguer, and you're just seeing 96, 97 with that great extension and that funky angle that he's coming at, and it's very Brian Wu, right? Like you get this sort of sense of like, man, he could really be something. And last year, the average fastball velocity, 92 miles per hour, and what happened? He just got hit left, right, and center, get sent down. This year, we're up to 95. One start, but other than maybe moving the arm angle up a little bit, which I'm just looking at a StatCast page. It's not like I made this observation on my own. It looks like the arm angle's up a little bit, which seems to, by the way, be the case for a lot of players on the Giants, something to look into down the line. But other than that, like, what is the fastball velo increase attributed to here for Kyle Harrison?
I think it really has to come down to just being healthy. I know a lot's been written about him not being 100%. I don't know when that happened in the middle of last year, but after his first 10 or 15 starts, the velo kind of tailed off pretty quickly and it never recovered. So I know he tried to stick in a rotation while the Giants, battled some depth issues there. They had to rely on openers and bullpen games, which we haven't really seen this year, by the way.
Thank God.
But I think the velo decrease last year really has to do with him not being fully 100%. He looks like he's back to where he was a couple of years ago, and he was a pretty electric arm, not just in his debut with the Giants, but coming up through the minors as well.
Right. Yeah, no, I mean, it was a lot of promise, and it did feel like the balloon got deflated a little bit last year. Maybe you can put some air back into it with a couple of good starts here. It would be a big boon for the Giants. I mean, if nothing else, maybe in the most cynical way possible, as the trade deadline comes up, because now you do have maybe an expendable young arm or two, maybe not just Harrison, but somebody else in the system. You feel like, hey, maybe we can move on from this guy because we have Kyle Harrison back, or maybe Kyle Harrison is the guy who goes somewhere else. And you have to give up something to get something. And the Giants do have a lot of arms that they can use as trade bait this upcoming June and July. I want to ask you about a couple more players here. Robbie Ray. Sure. Looking absolutely marvelous, back looking like the old Robbie Ray. Maybe not Cy Young Robbie Ray, but he's been outstanding for the Giants. This is what I think a lot of people foresaw. I think a lot of people saw the Robbie Ray bounce back. He had a great end to last season, a great swinging strike rate, and a lot of positive numbers there. What are you seeing from Ray right now?
Yeah, I mean, in addition to the changeup he's kind of mixed in, that's been a pretty nice weapon. That was talked a lot about in spring training, but his command is a whole lot better than it has been in the past. I mean, I watched a lot of Robbie Ray starts as soon as the Giants traded for him, and there were a lot of starts where he'd be cruising and he would just miss middle out in the zone, and it would get hit pretty hard. He hasn't really made those mistakes as much this year. So in addition to having kind of a third pitch, I mean, he's pretty four-seam slider dominant, but having that changeup kind of gives hitters a different look. But the command looks improved as well, which has not always been characteristic of Robbie Ray's career. I don't know what to make of it so far this year, but it's a good sign that he's throwing strikes and he's not missing in the middle of the zone as much as he has in the past.
Well, it's absolutely huge for the Giants because you know what you're getting from Logan Webb most every night. And then to have Robbie Ray following him up, you have that 1-2. They're just looking for that 3, 4, and 5 and some very good options as of right now, but still a bit up in flux. So having that number 2, even if it's an artificial hierarchy sort of locked down, gives you confidence moving forward with this team. Final guy I want to ask you about, what do the Giants do with Luis Matos? It doesn't seem fair, the situation that he's been thrown into. He's too good for AAA. He's not good enough for the major leagues, but you can't really put him back in AAA. Like, what do the Giants do here with Luis Matos? Because it does also seem way too early, at 23 years old, I believe, to be giving up on him.
Yeah, that's a tough position that they're in right now with Matos. The sporadic playing time isn't really doing him or the Giants any favors. So I mean, it wouldn't hurt for him just to get consistent at bats in AAA, to be honest. Okay. He only has 72 at bats through 50 plus games this year. He's averaging one plate appearance, a little over one plate appearance a game. So it feels like just getting some of these guys at bats and innings is the best thing that they could do. He's, Mike Yastrzemski, Jung-Hoo Lee, Elliot Ramos, they've kind of been the strength of the Giants roster so far, the lineup so far. So there's not going to be a ton of playing time in outfield. They could mix it up a little bit and use the DH as an opportunity to get a couple of different bats in there, with Matos being part of that solution. But they like Flores in that position too. They don't really want Flores to be on the field for health reasons. So I do feel like moving him back to AAA wouldn't be the worst thing to get his swing going again. There's just a lot of things for him to work on that he's just not going to really get a good chance to work on with the Giants right now.
Tricky spot. Buster's got a lot of tough decisions coming up here. It had been smooth sailing there for a while for the new director of baseball operations. Now we get into the sticky portion of the baseball season for a team that Listen, as good as the record's been, I mean, that arrow's been pretty flat, if not pointing down as of late on the macro. So you want to be careful. You don't want to give up too much of that great little cushion that you built up early in the season. So a lot of things to keep an eye on here. And Jeff, tell the folks where they can keep an eye on your work.
Well, we put out content every day at Around the Foghorn. So that's where you can find all the articles that we write.
Hell yeah. The great Jeff Young. Always a pleasure, my friend. Talk soon.
Thanks for having me on, Dieter.
The great Jeff Young, ladies and gentlemen. Always a pleasure. And you, of course, can check him out on Around the Foghorn. What is it? Baseball Jeff 1 on the Twitter X machine. Baseball Jeff 1, if you are so micro post inclined. We're going to take a quick break. 808 KNBR is the number if you want to get in on this action. It's Sports Phone KNBR until 9 p.m. Kurtenbach with you on the Sports Leader.
KNBR keeps rolling live from the KNBR Casino Matrix Progressive Jackpot Studios. Casino Matrix Progressive Jackpots are here. Where are you? Just drop in. Please play responsibly. 1-800-GAMBLER.
Hey, we're back with you, the sports leader, Dieter Kurtenbach, until 9 p.m. Sports Phone KNBR is the name of the show. And I want to talk a little hoops here because, first off, Western Conference playoffs, it is Oklahoma City's to take at this point, up 3-1. They have been my finals winner pick since like this time last year. That 10-1 ticket looking real sweet right now. Not just to win the West, but to win the whole damn thing. That said, I want to talk about something other than the City Thunder or the Wolves or how the Warriors somehow fit into that or whatever the hell's going on in the East, which, by the way, is on 1050 right now. Like, beyond all of that, I want to talk about the entertainment product that is the NBA. Kind of a favorite subject of so many pundits and prognosticators, and everyone wants to bitch, whine, and complain about, oh, is the NBA watchable? The NBA is eminently watchable. The NBA is a tremendous product. I'm a big fan of what's happening in the NBA right now, even with the Warriors out of the ball game. But I am sick to my stomach with what happened last night in Minneapolis, not because the Thunder won, but because of how the game went down and how the NBA has allowed this to happen. No one seems to like Roger Goodell. That's fine. No one needs the commissioner of a sports league to be well-liked. In fact, they're doing their job well if they're not well-liked. But you can't say that Roger Goodell doesn't have the best interest of the NFL's entertainment value top of mind. If there is something that is impugning or undercutting the entertainment value of the NFL, Roger Goodell will fix it. And you might say, what about the tush push? If the tush push was really problematic, the NFL would have found a way to unilaterally ban it. They wouldn't have needed to do a whole vote. They would have found a way. And by the way, I still think there is a way to do it. We'll get into that some other time. The NBA has a real problem. It is a specific problem, but it is a real issue. Because the last 15 minutes of what was otherwise, and I'm talking real time, of what was otherwise an painfully entertaining, wildly entertaining basketball game yesterday was ruined. It ruined the experience, the final 15 watching minutes, because we had free throws on free throws on free throws and teams, in this case Oklahoma City, fouling while up 3. It's a scourge on the product. It is unquestionably awful to watch. Is it tactically sound? You bet your ass it is. Of course it is. Why else would you do it? So, of course, teams are going to do it. It is on the NBA to stop teams from doing it, to make it no longer tactically sound. And a lot of people have bloviated, and I guess I'm going to do the same thing, but I have a solution. This is for free. Adam Silver, 808 KNBR. This is for free. You never have to worry about fouling up 3 again. 2 simple adjustments. You could do them tomorrow if you wanted. I'm sure it wouldn't be actionable for the 25 playoffs, but for every game from here on out, here's the rules. 1, you can decline a penalty. You don't want to watch Mitchell Robinson shoot free throws? That's fine. Decline the penalty. We'll just take it side out. You can decline penalties. You can do it in the NFL. I don't see the problem with that. NFL teams decline penalties all the time. Why should you be at a disadvantage because the other team did something to you? That's not fair. You should be able to decline a penalty. A penalty should not be forcefully enforced. That's ridiculous. You should be able to decline a penalty. You don't want to go to the free throw line? That's fine. Technically in baseball, you don't have to walk to first. After 4 pitches, you do. But if you get hit by a pitch, you can decline the penalty. Never happens, but you can do it. You can be able to decline a penalty. That has to be set. That has to be a ground rule. You can decline penalties in the NBA now. Here's where you get rid of fouling up 3. And by the way, the NBA has done something like this in recent years. It's called the take foul. Remember when teams would just foul players trying to break away? Right? You get a steal in the backcourt, and hey, it's going to be an easy dunk. Everyone came to the ball game to watch somebody do a cool dunk, but this guy fouled him. Well, now it's a take foul. So it's one technical free throw shot, right? Nobody on the line except for the shooter and the ball. So here's the new take foul rule as it pertains to an up 3 situation where a team is fouling so that you can only get 2 points off of the free throw line and then possession switches over. Because penalties can be declined, the team that is down 3, looking to get up a 3, obviously to tie the game, or they can go for 2, right, and play the possession game with fouls. The team that is down 3 can decline a foul, right? So is the team that is up 3 still incentivized to foul if you can decline it? Probably, because you can burn some clock, right? You just foul them all the way home. If they're going to keep declining because they don't want to go to the free throw line, you can just run the clock out, in theory. So how do you prevent the fouling up 3? Again, 1, penalties can be declined, and 2, if you have 3 consecutive non-shooting defensive fouls on a single possession, which is the shot clock is only being reset by the fouls, you treat it as a take foul. So you foul them once, okay, that's fine. And this is, of course, in the bonus. Foul them once, that's fine. Foul them twice, they decline the penalty, that's fine. Next time you foul them, if they are not in a shooting motion, if it is not a shooting foul, and they have now declined 3 straight penalties, it's a take foul. 1 shot at the line, and the opposing team retains possession here. That's a pretty simple solution, because now you get to foul up 2. Hopefully. Got to make your free throws. So how do you... there's been suggestions, if it's under the shot clock and this and that, now it's a 3 free throw attempt. No, it's a take foul. It's a take foul. You get to make 1 free throw, and now it's a 2-point game, but you still have the ball. Is it worth it for a team up 3 to burn a little bit of clock, but the other team has the ball in a 2-point game? Should they make their free throw on a take foul? I don't think so. I don't think it's tactically sound. I think you'd rather them shoot a 30-something% three-pointer, right? Wouldn't you rather take your chances with them tying the game on a much less probable shot than them getting any shot they want on the floor, which could either beat you as a 3 or tie the game as a 2, so long as they make a free throw, which, by the way, would be a take foul, so you can choose anybody on the floor, so a very high percentage shot. I think it's a rather elegant solution. I think you can implement this tomorrow. I think it'd be pretty simple to figure out. Again, let's just lay it down one more time. Here's how you solve the end of game crisis that the NBA has with teams fouling up 3 going into free throw contests to win the game. 1, you can decline the penalty. That goes for both teams, right? If you're in the lead and the other team fouls you, you can say, we'll just take it side out. That's fine. That's fine. You can decline penalties. The other team will take the free throws, but you can decline the penalties. The flip side is, if the team up 3 is fouling you, and they foul you once, twice, that's fine. They're burning some clock. No problem. No problem at all. The 3rd time they get you, it's a take foul. 1 free throw, and you keep the ball. And now you don't have to worry about fouling up 3 because you're fouling up 2 if you foul. And that's a whole different ball game. 808 KNBR. Can you even watch this stuff? Can you even stand watching it? I'm considering, If I know it's going to turn into a free throw shooting contest, just coming back and finding out what happened later. Because last night was so aggravating. I was enjoying that game so much. So much. It was such a good basketball game. It really did feel on the edge. It felt like the deciding game of a series. Oklahoma City's up 3-1. Felt like the deciding game of a series. And it was ruined by boring, wonky tactics. Get rid of it. Take it out. The NFL wouldn't stand by and let this happen. The NHL's maybe too free-flowing of a game for it to be an issue. Baseball? What was baseball's biggest issue? And I know that there will be some folks, certainly in this audience, that will complain about the Manfred man. But these extra inning games where you were burning through pitchers and you were just dying for a Tuesday night regular season game that went 16 innings. Oh, it was so pure. It was so honest. It was so brutal to watch. It was enough to make you turn off the TV. Put a guy on second. It's not an earned run. Let's just get this thing sorted. Because no one could possibly live with the concept of a tie. So let's just get this thing sorted. The Manfred man is a good adjustment. It's a good rule. The pitch clock. Yes, there are some unintended consequences, unquestionably. But it is a good rule. It has sped up the game. The universal DH, does it take out some quirk? You bet your ass it does. Do I kind of miss the double shift? Absolutely. I really do. I legitimately do. But I knew I was going to when it went away. I also grew up as an American League fan. And the fact that the American League had a DH and didn't have that rule, and the National League did when the two leagues were interplaying at all times, was laughable. It's one thing to have different ground rules. It's another thing to have completely different sport rules, depending on when you're playing. The SEC and the Big Ten don't have different rules about the clock when you play college football. At least engage on the same level playing field. So the DH, listen, unless you wanted to get rid of the DH, which was never going to happen, but unless you wanted to get rid of the DH, everyone had to adapt the DH. And I don't think that they were going to get rid of the DH given that it improves offense and that pitchers hitting, while quirky and fun at times, because, hey, every now and again someone ran into one, it was an objectively bad product. And it made the game less entertaining. I don't think Rob Manfred is doing a very good job overall. I think the product that he has put out on the field is still declining year over year. I think ESPN has made a pretty strong statement by just dropping Sunday Night Baseball. But in those three things, he did a damn good job. And by the way, there's still more work to be done. And there's a lot of conversation right now around Major League Baseball about how do you encourage starting pitchers to stay in the game longer. You have the 3-batter rule already for relievers. How do you encourage starters to stay in the game longer? Do you lose the DH if your starter doesn't stay in for 5 innings, 6 innings? How do you play that game? These are things that Major League Baseball is thinking about because this is a dog-eat-dog world when it comes to sports, when it comes to your entertainment dollar, when it comes to attention, the only true currency in this day and age. Major League Baseball sat on its laurels for decades and thought everything will be A-okay. They'll always come back to baseball, only to realize, no. People were not coming back to baseball. And if baseball didn't do something to attract some more people back to the game, it was going to die. And I don't know how well that's going, but at least they're doing something. Again, the NFL never has this issue because they are beholden not to the fans, not to legacy, not to tradition. They are beholden to the billions of dollars every year that television networks give them. And they run contracts that are short-term specifically to keep them on the cutting edge. They are incentivized at every point to put the best possible entertainment product out on the field. And while, again, I appreciate tradition and all of these things immensely, this is ultimately about the overall health of the sport. And the overall health of the sport is tied to how much money they can get for being on your television. I don't have to like it, but it is the truth. And when it comes to the NBA right now, I think that the overall product is magnificent. I think it's fantastic. Could I use a few less three-pointers per game? You bet. But those things take care of themselves on the court. That one is so minor that I feel like it can be manipulated in a little while. I don't think that's a clear and present danger. I do think this fouling up three thing is a clear and present danger. I don't think that it's something that shows up very often, but when it does show up, it is brutal. It is absolutely atrocious. And the fact that the NBA, to my knowledge, hasn't done anything to address it yet is derelict in duty. So again, Adam Silver, 808 KNBR, I just solved it for you. Penalties can be declined, and if you do 3 consecutive defensive fouls before a shot, it will be treated as a take foul, 1 free throw, and a retained possession. Bam. Solved it for you. 808 KNBR. Did I solve it? Your prerogative. Always appreciated. We'll talk some more Giants, and we're going to talk some 49ers in the 8 o'clock hour. Kurtenbach with you until 9 on The Sports Leader.
This is where we feed the faithful. Sports Phone, KNBR. Streaming live at twitch.tv/The Sports Leader.
We're back with you, The Sports Leader, Dieter Kurtenbach, until 9 p.m. We call it Sports Phone KNBR, and I'm hosting, so you know what that means. Jake Hutchinson can't be far away. Jake Hutchinson, the Hutch Report on Substack, the Dieter and Hutch podcast, where he is the better half. Jake, 49ers, OTAs. How amped are you, buddy?
Electric. There's nothing more electric than OTAs. For those of you who are not aware, it's, guys are just hanging out, practicing a little bit, can't really do any contact, but, it's the first glimpse of what the team might actually theoretically look like.
10 days of OTAs, pardon the rhyme, no live contact. Then 2 days of mandatory minicamp. Are they allowed to touch in mandatory minicamp?
I'm not sure.
Neither
It might
am I.
be like a COVID situation, 6 feet away. You can pretend.
That's Roger Goodell's NFL. Let's go to guys who do have to touch. A lot of pushing, a lot of shoving. Offensive line. I saw John Feliciano, who is very active and definitely calls it X, out here claiming that the 49ers offensive line is being unfairly maligned. I suppose I could just read the tweet, Jake. Let's pull this up here. Everyone on the team are first ballot, ballet, Hall of Famers. To be able to have so much success in spite of that blank O-line, laughing emoji. Besides John Feliciano totally ruining the reputation of the academics of the University of Miami, what do you make of just in general the 49ers offensive line and where it fits in the grand hierarchy of the NFL? Because I do think there's some merit in the argument that both Brock Purdy has made and now John Feliciano, I suppose, has made through his X account.
Yeah, I think the 49ers offensive line is like the bastion of mediocrity, where it's sort of in the eye of the beholder, and some people are like, they're incredibly underrated, and then there's a lot of people that are like, they're garbage. And the reality is that they're okay. They're never going to be great. They're never going to be like truly, truly terrible. Because usually they're guys that are just somewhat competent and can survive. And it's sort of Chris Forster, their offensive line coach's philosophy of like, just get guys to be able to function and survive out there. So to me, it's a lot of guys that are almost Swiss Army knife capable, where you can kind of just plug them in a few different spots and they have enough athletic ability to survive, but they're not going to be elite for the most part in pass protection. A lot of them are going to be able to get out and run, but it's not going to be sexy. Like, you're going to see some ugly reps at times, and they haven't invested enough to ever be like a top 10, even top 15 is like, they got to have a good year to be a top 15 O-line. To me, they're usually like in an average year, like the 18th best offensive line in football. That feels where they reside.
I almost think that the Niners are getting a worse rap, and it's because of a sort of cognitive dissonance that is currently existing in the NFL. We can all overtly see that the 49ers offensive line isn't very good. The problem that we have, I think, as folks who cover one team, and certainly as fans who really only watch one team on a regular basis, is that level of mediocrity, as you put it, just the crappiness, as I'll put it at times, that is in fact pretty good by modern NFL standards. You think you got it bad because you know what a good offensive line should look like, but buddy, we don't exist in a market where there are good offensive lines. I mean, there's like one good offensive line in the NFL, Jake. I know that offensive line talk isn't sexy, but this is where we're at. It's May 27th. Am I off base in the notion that there is like one good offensive line and everyone else just kind of sucks?
Yeah, I assume you're talking about the Eagles and then everybody else. Yeah, I mean, and they also have like the best offensive line coach in football, where they'll take somebody who played rugby for 2 years, has never actually pass blocked, and turn them into an all-pro. Yeah, I think that's accurate. It is an age where I think offensive line coaches around the league would agree with you that offensive line play has gotten worse. And maybe some of that's college, and that there's not a lot of translatable skill sets, or the schemes that they're coached in are a little bit different. Or the terminology takes a lot. But
along those lines, Jake, I mean, you just scouted how many offensive linemen, and your general takeaway of watching college offensive line film was what?
It's yuck. It's a lot of like, oh, this guy could maybe be something, And personally, I liked last year. There were some interior offensive line guys I liked a little bit more. This year, it's tough when you get a class where you recognize it's not great and you're trying to convince yourself that one guy who you know is not actually elite. You're like, well, maybe in the context of this class, he's better than what he truly is. But yeah, I think you get a lot of raw prospects where you get, especially with offensive tackles in the first round, you'll get guys that are specimens. And you're like, okay, this guy's a specimen, but can he play? I don't know, but he's going to go top 32.
And you're hoping that you have a Jeff Stoutland, or in the case of the 49ers, a Chris Forrester, to where you can get the most out of whatever that might be. In the case of the Niners, they're not taking those specimens. They're taking guys who maybe have a bit more experience, are a bit better scheme fits, might not have that pedigree, that 5-star rating back in the day, and just hoping to make chicken salad out of chicken. Well, I'll let John Feliciano put it that way.
They just take anybody with a good 3-cone score in the combine, and that's pretty much it.
What is it, the gauntlet drill for wide receivers, apparently, and a 3-cone score for offensive linemen?
Yeah, and the broad jump for defensive tackles.
Who says the combine doesn't matter? Can we quickly just go through the 49ers offensive linemen? I promise we'll talk about sexier positions in a moment here. Though I think that anybody who knows us knows that we think these are, in fact, the sexiest positions out there. Big boys for life. Colton McKivitz, a tricky guy to evaluate in general. He was arguably the 49ers' best offensive lineman last year. He was not overtly a great offensive lineman last year. And now his contract is sort of in question. He's making probably less than he can get on the open market, seeing as Jalen Moore got, what, $15 million, $17 million?
15, I think, over 15 a year for 2 years from the
So
Chiefs.
Colton McKivitz's backup got $15 million a year. What did the Niners do with Colton McKivitz, and can the fan base stand it? Like, this is a tricky spot.
Yeah, Colton McKivitz is like, it's the thing about him is he was good last year. Like, he was objectively good, not great. No one's ever going to argue that he was great because he wasn't, but he was steady, you know. And I think like Mike McGlinchey scarred a lot of people, because McGlinchey was actually, for the most part, pretty good, but when it was bad, it was the worst thing you'd ever seen. He would topple. He's a long, thin, you know, guy where the center of balance, as soon as it goes, like, he's landing on his butt. So McKivitz, I would say, probably has less of that, but there are some times where it's really, really ugly. Last year he was fine, and the 49ers were getting a cheap price.
Right.
I would guess they probably lose him next year in free agency, because the standard of O-line play is so bad that I bet somebody's willing to pay more than the 49ers are. And it'll depend how his season goes. But it might not, because Aaron Banks played terrible last year, and then the Green Bay Packers came in with like $20 million a year. Again, he was terrible.
He was awful.
The Green Bay Packers paid him a lot of money. So I think the 49ers would probably like to keep Colt McKivitz, but I would guess the price gets a little bit too steep for their liking.
Well, that's fascinating. It's great that you bring up the Aaron Banks point, because you and I spent all of last year, and that is only borderline hyperbole, stating that the defense's entire goal of the game was to attack Aaron Banks. Like, I'm a big proponent of, I don't need to tell you who's good. The other team will tell you who's good, and the other team will tell you who's bad, because these guys' jobs, millions in salary, are on the line, and they have to figure out a game plan. So they're not going to worry too much about aesthetics or anything. If that guy sucks, we're going at that guy. If that guy's good, we're going away from that guy. I got kids to feed. Aaron Banks was the number one target on the 49ers offensive line last year, and that guy got paid big bucks by the Green Bay Packers, who I guess just didn't get the memo because they had a bad quarterback behind the center that day and didn't notice Aaron Banks.
Yeah, it's interesting. They let Aaron Banks go, and left guard is suddenly a really funny spot where it's like going to be Ben Barch, and then I guess rookies and Spencer Burford will compete, and then there's Connor Colby and Drew Moss. It's kind of the ideal that we were talking about with Chris
Zakelj as well. Got to get Zakelj in there. Can't get rid of Zakelj.
Sure. What, you know, it's what Chris Forster wants, right? He wants a bunch of like sort of mediocre guys all competing and seeing if he can coach them up and who comes out of that gauntlet.
He's going for the San Francisco Giants model, it sounds like, at least the Farhan Zaidi version of it. Dominic Pooney had an unbelievable start to last season. This is a classic example of always make a good first impression, because Dominic Pooney's play sort of slid more and more, and it never got bad. I don't want to impugn the Poon, but Dominic Pooney, it was pretty clear that teams started to get a game plan on how to attack him. What are you expecting from Pooney in year 2? And could he be that right tackle that slides over should McKivitz get injured or leave after this season?
I think they want to avoid a situation where they have to move Pooney. I think they're comfortable with him there. I think they did say he could theoretically play tackle because, he did in college. But right. I think they like him at right guard. It's interesting, behind McKivitz and Trent Williams, they bring in DJ Humphries, who his agent was like, yeah, he was really unhealthy last year, but he's healthy now, which is not exceedingly inspiring.
Jake, have they in fact brought in DJ Humphries? I was under the impression they haven't signed that contract yet.
Well, his agent said he signed with the 49ers, so yeah, I'd have to check on that.
We will actually have to look in. The fact is that we don't even know if he's on the team yet in DJ Humphries, right. So that can't be a good sign for if DJ Humphries is good.
Yeah, so it's DJ Humphries, Andre Dillard, and Nick Petit-Frere. Petit-Frere has objectively had a terrible career. Dillard had, I think, like one good year, if I'm not mistaken, with the Packers. He's at least of a higher caliber. So they're going with veterans, I think, is their ideal behind McKivitz and Williams, rather than sliding Pooney over.
Yeah, I think it was with the Eagles, by the way, which is not, in fact, a surprise. Jake Brendel. Oh boy, your namesake here, Jake, it's been a rough, I would say, 2 years for Brendel. Obviously, a lot of it tied to injuries. When he's healthy, he's actually a pretty damn good center. He was, I think, a Pro Bowl alternate one year. There's a lot of things to like about Brendel when he's healthy. The problem is he's never healthy, and you can't expect him to be healthy at this point in his career and the position that he plays and the weight that he plays it at. And I know that the 49ers are very specific and at times idiosyncratic about what they ask their centers to do. But can the Niners keep living like this with Jake Brendel unable to anchor, and now it seems, at least as we saw last year, really unable to get to the second level as well?
Yeah, they seem content. They seem to be, every single time they were asked about Jake Brendel, they were defending him almost incessantly.
Right.
And I will say, to Brendel's credit, he looked like he should be benched for the first probably month of the season. And I don't mean that to be, fun or hyperbolic. Like, he was terrible.
He was a bottom 10 center in the NFL for the first
he looked rough.
6-7
and
weeks.
And then it evened out, and there's something to be said. I think Alex Mack used to say it, where like there's some scar tissue in your knees, especially as an older center, older offensive lineman, that needs to burn down and get the grease going in the wheels.
That's the Alex Mack that retired at age 34.
That's correct. So not exactly the most inspiring thing to say, but I will say Brendel, he improved, but it wasn't impressive. And so you look behind him, and it's like Zakel and Matt Hennessy and Drake Nugent. Again, it's a bunch of guys that give sort of energy. It's just middling, meh. I think they're just going to bet on Jake Brendel because they wouldn't have saved much by cutting him, and they say, right. Well, he knows the system. I think for the 49ers, they probably put too much on the centers to set protections, right, and knowing how the offense runs. And so the idea of trying to train someone new and not necessarily being in love with any of the centers in the draft, a position that, again, they put a premium on veterans, but not really on young guys at the center position. I think they just go with what they know, and they're going to not feel thrilled, but they're going to feel okay about it.
Well, that's the 49ers offensive line in a nutshell. Not thrilled, but you feel okay about it. We presume Trent Williams is going to show up to work, right?
You always think he is until he doesn't. So I would say yes, but if he doesn't show up, it wouldn't surprise me in the least. Okay. And then everyone will say it's fine. And then you get to training camp and you're like, why is Trent not here? And they're like, don't worry about it. He'll be here.
Andre Dillard's doing great. Don't worry about it. This won't be an issue in the regular season at all.
I'd expect him there, but if he doesn't show up, it wouldn't shock me.
Real quick, who do you think wins the left guard job? If we're projecting out, it's September 1. Who's won the job?
I'd say Ben Bartch. I mean, given he had a very, very small sample size last year, but it was impressive, and he was better than Aaron Banks. And when he went down, I was in the locker room after he got hurt, and the look on the faces of players on that offensive line were like, damn, we were starting to get something. We were starting to get somewhere with Ben Barch. And again, extremely small sample size, but if you want the leader in the clubhouse, he'd be it for me.
That is a indictment on the 49ers 2024 season. Ben Barch goes down after a game and a half, and everyone's like, well, that's the season. Can't do this thing without Ben Barch. But to be fair, Ben Barch was totally sick for that game and a half. He was absolutely magnificent. I believe you and I have both called him a revelation separate of each other, which, again, a big indictment on the 2024 San Francisco 49ers. We'll see what it means for the 25 49ers. Talking to Jake Hutchinson, the Hutch Report. You can subscribe right now. Ben Solak, enemy of the show? Is he an enemy of our podcast?
I wouldn't say an enemy, but it's and it's tough. It's tough when you're a film nerd guy online. It's a tough look. It's tough to pull off.
It is. Regardless, Ben Solak, he works for ESPN now. It had this interesting note on Christian McCaffrey, something that all of our eyes could have told us, but he has now quantified it, which might be the Ben Solak experience right there. NFL Next Gen Stats had his minimum speeds in the 4 games that Christian McCaffrey played last year. Maximum speeds, I should say. It would be incredible if these were his minimum speeds. His maximum speeds per NFL Next Gen Stats in the 4 games Christian McCaffrey played last year: 16.4, 16.7, 16.1, and 17.4 miles per hour. 17.4 would have been the Buffalo game, which he unquestionably looked like himself for the first time again. Contextually, this is Solak. Sorry, that was a bit of a Dieter aside. Context, that 17.4 would have been his fifth worst in a game during the 2023 season when he was the MVP of the 49ers Super Bowl bound offense. Christian McCaffrey, this is. Of course, Brock Purdy got more MVP votes, neither here nor there. He clearly looked less springy in 2024 than he did in 23. In fact, he looked like a player who had a cool 417 touches in the previous season. Who would have thought that a guy who had 417 touches and then Achilles whatever to the point where he had to go to Germany mid-season would not look as fast? Will we get the old Christian McCaffrey back, or is he just a candle in the wind?
I wouldn't say we're going to get the old McCaffrey, but I would expect a better version than what we saw last year. To me, there's also an element of tentativeness on his part. He is as focused on protecting his body as any player in the NFL. Yes. He spends a ton of money on it. He spends a ton of focus, and he's very, very protective of his information and what's actually going on with his body, which is why the situation was so weird. Because, it was like he's going to Germany, but he's fine, and he's going to start the season, but he's not. And no one could really find out exactly what was going on, and he made it that way.
The only way we found out he went to Germany is someone took a photo of him at the airport.
Right. But he is... It's like state secrets, like he keeps it close to his vest. So I would expect, like, besides treatment and all that and recovery, he just didn't play much last year, and the 49ers had a long layoff. I think that alone, for some of these guys, like, that's a huge benefit for him. So totally. I would expect a better version than what we saw last year. The question, as always, with McCaffrey is, will it last? Will he survive the season? And that I couldn't possibly tell you. But I would expect closer to that 2023, right, MVP-ish campaign than what we saw last year, where it was weird and felt like almost he shouldn't play at all.
Right.
And he didn't feel like he was comfortable being out there, and we all saw it looked wrong, and then he's like, no, it's fine. We're fine. I didn't play well, but it's fine. Don't ask any questions.
It feels fundamental to any shot the 49ers have of making this season deeply interesting. I think it can inherently be interesting in that they have inarguably the easiest schedule in the NFL. They should have a tremendous amount of players back from injury, including McCaffrey. I do think that this is double-digit wins or bust for the 49ers, given all the advantages that have been handed their way by the NFL. At the same time, you look at the overall talent level of this team, and I think it's unquestionably gone down. And one guy who can sort of be a panacea to all of that, especially on the offensive end, where you have questions at X receiver. As much as you and I both love Ricky Pearsall, it's a question at Z. Juwan Jennings is great and all, but does he show up to work? What's his deal? Do they play him at X? I mean, there's a lot of questions at the receiver core, questions as we went through on the offensive line. If you have Christian McCaffrey firing on all cylinders, and that might only be 5 of the previous 6 cylinders, if you have that going, that can change the fundamental output of an offense and get it into a pretty respectable level. I mean, it wasn't a terrible offense last year with all the things that went wrong. Imagine what Christian McCaffrey, not just running the ball, but catching the ball out of the backfield could do for this team this upcoming season, and especially early when you know you don't have Brandon Ayuk, when you might not even have an X receiver on the roster, all things considered. Like, you have to have Christian McCaffrey. You have to have Christian McCaffrey going something close to 100% from week 1 on, especially with Seattle on the road in week 1. That's a division game, and you and I have talked about this before. First month and a half of the season, you could already have lost the NFC West because there's 3 division games. All of them are going to be tough. You might have this easy schedule, but if you want to win your division, which should be your number 1 goal going into any campaign, you better hit the ground running, and I think that means a lot of Christian McCaffrey early, and it means good Christian McCaffrey early, at least to me.
Yeah, I think it's crucial. I think especially you mentioned it with the wide receiver situation. They bring in DeMarcus Robinson, right, where they know Brandon Ayuk maybe the second half of the season is when he returns. But even if when he returns, the expectations have to be pretty low for him coming back from this year where his knee, it wasn't just an ACL. I think it was an ACL, MCL. I want to say PCL as well. His knee,
it was, quote, other ligament. And I'm like, I don't think there are any other ligaments to tear in there.
Yeah, it's where, and so you have Ricky Pearsall, Jawan Jennings, and then DeMarcus Robinson, who likely, it hasn't been confirmed yet, but the league mandated suspension would be 3 games, right? For drinking and driving.
Yeah.
Right. So that would be, he'd be out for the first 3 games, which is when you need him most. And then it's, okay, Jacob Cowing, step on up, or Jordan Watkins, rookie wide receiver. Mm-hmm. Outside of that, it's like, do you like Isaiah Hodgins? Are you letting Trent Taylor play meaningful football for you? Right. So, yeah, you got to have Ricky Pearsall fire. You need that. Pearsall firing.
You unquestionably need that too. That's a separate
But you need McCaffrey. You need McCaffrey to operate for you, especially as a receiver. Especially just healthy. Just his presence alone can make things really, really a lot easier for you.
Who's Christian McCaffrey's backup this season? His number. If you had to, if McCaffrey is out for a game, who's the lead running back?
I would guess it's Garendo.
Okay,
but I do think there's a level of trust they will have in Jordan James over Isaac Garendo. I think there's a level of, he played a lot of college football. The way they've talked about him, the sense that he can just fit in and he's going to do the right thing. And was very productive. Well, sort of like, Bobby Turner, the legendary running backs coach they have, who, he is the guy who sort of dictates how that operates, and he seemed to love Jordan James. I thought Isaac Garendo, he struggled early, which we knew because he missed all of training camp, and he's a developmental guy
100%.
Who didn't really know how to play the position, and then he missed a ton of games. But I think before he got hurt, he started to turn a corner, and I think they're going to leave that competition open in camp. But what we saw from Garendo, I think you'd have to ride with him if he's healthy and let him just play, because the explosion, the high ceiling there is really meaningful. But I also think he's less trustworthy than Jordan James.
I don't know if I ever peg this in all of the moves that have happened this offseason, but that running back room, which going into training camp last year, you look at it and you go, okay, you got Garendo, who is developmental, right? But a lot of traits that you really like. He's your rookie. He was 4th on the depth chart, right? He might have even been 5th on the depth chart behind Patrick Taylor, the special teams guy who does nothing for you on the offense. It's just nothing. I don't understand what's going on there, but they're all about the special teams now, baby. But you had Jordan Mason, JP Mason, and you had Elijah Mitchell, at least at the start of training camp last year. Now, we all know what happened with Mitchell. Same old story. You're looking now at McCaffrey, yes. Garendo, maybe there's a knee issue there. Everyone's optimistic, but maybe there's a little bit of touch and go, at least at the beginning of training camp. I guess this will be a good week to find out where he stands. You have James, the rookie, and then you got Taylor Israel Abanikanda, who is, sorry to say, just a guy. And then Corey Kiner out of Cincinnati, who I don't think either of us thought he was draftable. this feels like a reasonable spot for him. He might have a better shot with the 49ers than he would have with another team. I'm not looking at this depth chart, and it's pretty thin pretty fast after Christian McCaffrey, and it's not like Christian McCaffrey can be counted on to touch the ball 400 times anymore.
No, it's not inspiring. I would say Jordan James, what he brings is a guy that, like, he's not got elite explosion, but he's got like a one cut where he can get you back foot and go, and he will mostly do things right. Corey Kiner is like a straightforward inside zone physical runner who has really very little elusive qualities to him whatsoever. And then Patrick Taylor, we saw he was a brutal watch on offense. And Abanikanda is a guy that, like, people will be like, remember how fast he is, remember Hard Knocks, and then you watch his tape and there's not much to chew on. So it's pretty ugly, and I would say Guerrero clearly has the highest ceiling. And if it was me and McCaffrey were to miss games, I'd lean on Guerrero, and I'd probably have Jordan James as your third down back.
Which rookie do you think is going to have the biggest impact? Is it just as easy to say the guy that they took 11 is going to have the biggest impact?
Yeah, well, that's the obvious answer. I think it's whichever defensive tackle plays the most, because I would say Michael Williams is going to have an enormous impact, but they do have Sam Okuanu, who's actually underrated and pretty good. I don't know about underrated, but he's like under the radar.
Yes.
And then
no one talks about Sam Okuanu.
And then they still have Yetur Gross-Matos. So, like, they do have two, like, capable edge players, right? And so Michael Williams is huge, like, literally, and in terms of, like, his presence. Right. But I would say defensive tackle is clearly the more important spot. The X factor for them is Alfred Collins, who, not healthy. They kept that under the radar. He was in a walking boot at the Texas Pro Day. Didn't participate in rookie minicamp that we saw. Right. We asked if he was cleared, and he said he'll be fine, which is a very cryptic, not yes answer.
So much fun.
But him and CJ West, one of those two, like whichever one of those is healthy and can gain like an early down role, I think that's going to be the most impactful rookie for them, because they need somebody to eat space. And that's sort of by design, where they drafted a bunch of small, fast guys at the second level, sort of with these, like, the idea that Alfred Collins and CJ West could eat up space up front and protect them, even though they sort of want to change how Alfred Collins plays, even though that's sort of exactly what you need.
Can I throw one more name at you here? Because I do think just looking at the depth chart, understanding what's happening on the depth chart, I'm not a big Marquise Sigel fan, but he looks like he's going to get every opportunity to not just get snaps on this team, but maybe even start for this team if he has a good enough training camp.
Let me read you off the names at safety. Malik Mustafa might, he's trying to say that he'll be ready to go. We don't know.
Come on now.
We don't
just
know.
Had ACL surgery.
Yeah, we don't know exactly when he's going to recover, but the idea that he's going to be ready for week one is, I mean, maybe he is, but it feels a little optimistic. Outside of them, it's Marquise Sigel, Richie Grant, who Falcons fans were happy to see go, Jason Pinnock, who like has had some good moments but is like not that impressive, Jalen Mahoney, who's one of those like, guys you bring in training camp and fans see a couple plays and get excited over, but not too much to chew on. A guy named Quindell Johnson, George Odom, who they just tried to keep on the field and then like could not warrant it, and then Jair Brown, who was really bad last year, and this is kind of his last chance to prove that he can start at safety in the NFL. So it's not a good group, and Sigel should have every opportunity to prove that like he can actually start there.
Fascinated to see what he looks like when we're able to get our eyes on him on a practice field, because if it looks like he has some instincts, if it looks like he's somebody who can get to the spot in time, obviously it's not full contact, so there is a level of inference that has to be made by the observer. But if he looks like somebody who's playing, let's just say at speed, that could be a huge development for the 49ers, because kind of like running back, safety is a wasteland right now once you get past Malik Mustafa, who, by the way, isn't healthy. So how big of a loss is Mustafa if he can't go here, let's say, until mid-October? We get through that first stretch of the season.
Yeah, it's a huge loss to me. I mean, and safety's been a really sketchy spot for them, but Mustafa, he's like the first guy where they've drafted these safeties where it's been like Tarvarius Moore and Jair Brown and guys where you're like, you can maybe. You see it where there's some athletic traits, but there's a hesitancy there. And Mustafa is one of the first guys where it's like, no, he will put his life on the line and trigger downhill. And Talanoa Hufanga had some qualities like that, but didn't really see it in the back end. Mustafa feels like maybe he's not a true free safety to be able to play center field, but he does have the range and ability to do some of those things. And he does feel like a guy that is like right on the cusp of being a young star. Like, I really, truly believe that. I loved his tape at Wake Forest. If you don't have him, you don't have a single answer at safety. You have only question marks. And so having that at a position where the main job, as they used to call it, is erasing big plays. It's preventing plays from becoming, turning a 10-yard play into a touchdown. It's a big responsibility, and you really, really only notice it when it's really bad back there.
So we've gone through a lot of positions on the 49ers depth chart, talking to the great Jake Hutchinson, the Hutch Report on Substack. Are the 49ers a top-tier team in the NFC this season?
I wouldn't say so.
Would their record indicate that they will be?
Yeah, their record will indicate that they're a top team. Here's the thing. I think by the end of the season, if all goes right, if you're going to use a rose-tinted, optimistic view of how this season could go, they could, because it's going to be a young team, and if they round into form in the second half of the season where they got a long stretch in the middle that's extraordinarily favorable, and these rookies start to click, they could. I think at the start of the season, the first half, where you might lose the division, I think the likeliest case for them is being a really frisky wild card team where if they mess up some of the games early, some of the other NFC West teams are just more established. They hit the ground running earlier, and the 49ers are, say, 1-2 in the division, and maybe they finish 3-3. I think them being a frisky wild card team where they start to round into shape and some of these rookies start to get a feel for it, I think that's their best chance of success. And they could win the NFC West because it's wide open.
Of course.
But there's a lot of question marks with them.
Should be noted that every team in the NFC West is projected with their Vegas win totals to be above 500 this year. So there is not a lot to be found between the 49ers at 10.5, Seattle, Arizona at 8.5, the Rams at 9.5. Looking at some of these win totals, Jake, I know you're all up on the board. Is there a team that you feel is a bit of a sleeper, a team that you feel is going to outperform expectations, whether they be Vegas win totals or sort of external narrative expectations? Do you like a team in, like, let's say the NFC this year more than others?
I'm looking at the Minnesota Vikings, and there's just Kevin O'Connell's such a good coach.
Right.
And they didn't have many picks this year, and everybody thought they were going to trade down. And instead they go, we're going to take Donovan Jackson, just the best guard in the draft, despite, the Cowboys taking Tyler Booker at 11 because they have to draft any offensive lineman named Tyler. Understandable. Right. It's worked for him in the past.
Goes without saying.
I would say the Vikings, obviously really tough division with the Packers, but the Packers can be funky. There's a world where they sort of screw around, where the Lions aren't quite right and they lose some pieces and their defense gets sketchy. There's a world where, like, the Vikings are really frisky, and it just works out with J.J. McCarthy. Now, there's a world where it doesn't work out, and they're a nightmare. But I think the way that they've been creative with their defense, even, lacking the pieces on defense, they've been frisky. They've made it tough on teams. The 49ers have really struggled with the Brian Flores defense in those games. And I just think Kevin O'Connell is such a sharp coach. They're at 8.5. I could see them winning 8 or 10 or 11 games.
Yeah, I think Minnesota is perhaps the best run organization in all of football right now. There's a pretty exceptional list at the top. Can I throw a name for fading?
Yeah.
You mentioned about it. Let's fade the Lions at 10.5. You lose both coordinators. You had your real shot last year. The letdown, I think, is going to be pretty significant. I'm not saying that they won't make the playoffs, but I think that they are going to have to fight, scratch, and claw to get to double-digit wins this year, because I think the Bears are coming with Ben Johnson as the head coach. I think that the Packers might fall off a little bit, but they're not expected to be some juggernaut, and there's certainly enough quality on the Packers to where you can't rule them out of anything. And then, obviously, Minnesota. I think that there's 3 or 4 extra losses compared to last year on the Detroit Lions schedule, and now you're looking at Jared Goff and saying, hey, you got to lift us. That's not his game. It's not his game. And I'm very curious to see how the bite your kneecaps off mentality works when you don't have one of the best offensive play callers and you don't have Aaron Glenn, who Aaron Glenn did a wonderful job in holding together a defense that was so injured. I mean, he found the duct tape. He found a way to make it work. I know Aiden Hutchinson is back, but I feel like Glenn was able to be it's kind of like what happened when Robert Saleh left. Like, is Robert Saleh the best defensive coordinator when it comes to X's and O's? Is he a Vic Fangio type? Not really. Really not. But you know what he can do? Get a bunch of dudes to go run through other dudes' faces on a weekly basis, regardless of the personnel on your team or the other team. And that really, really matters on the defensive side. Put your guys in good positions, but make sure that they play at their best. I think that would be the mandate of a defensive coordinator, almost in reverse for an offensive coordinator, right? Just make sure you have really good guys and get them in a good position, and they'll make something happen. So I'm going to fade the Lions this year. Looking at the AFC, I mean, we're all fading Pittsburgh, right? They currently don't have a quarterback.
Right.
This can only go on for so long. At some point, the game is up. It just has to be with the Steelers.
Yeah, and there's some rumblings that, there's some questions like, should you start to think about moving on from Tomlin, even though he's never had a losing season?
Great defensive coordinator.
Crazy. Right. He's always kept him in it, but at a certain point, mediocrity is almost worse than sort of clearing the deck and falling way off. Now, you're going to regret that, when you're in this wallowing in self-pity and you've had 3 or 4 losing seasons in a row. I hate to say it, but I'm a little curious about the Raiders with Pete Carroll and Geno. I know their rosters
in terms of playing the over on a win total.
Yes,
I'm with you. I'm going to ride,
but
6.5.
6.5. I know that's a trap. I know it's a trap. The Raiders are at 6.5. I know their roster's messy, and Jack Besh is going to start at wide receiver for them, but he's fun. Their offensive line isn't dreadful.
No.
Right? They've got Geno, they've got Genty and Mostert and a few other pretty good backs.
Yeah.
Jacoby Myers is fine. They have a crazy high upside wide receiver rookie in Dante Thornton, who might suck, but also might catch 7 touchdowns and have 1,000 yards on 30 catches just because he'd
be the Nick
deep
Westbrook Akine of the Raiders.
Exactly. There's just something where I'm Geno Smith and Pete Carroll. Pete Carroll, he brings good energy.
Totally.
I could see that, even if it's just 7 wins. I know that's not a good bet to say, oh, they're going to win 7, but
no.
I think there's a little bit of something there.
Are we buying in at the Patriots at 8.5? It feels like Drake May didn't show me enough in year 1 to believe that in year 2 this team is just going to go from 4th overall pick to a winning season. I know that their division sucks. I get it. By the way, Miami at 8.5. I think I'm fading them. I love Mike McDaniel, but there's something rotten happening with the Dolphins. Maybe this is just a division play, but it feels like everyone's a little too hot to trot on the Patriots right now from my standpoint.
Yeah, and it's they still don't really have an answer. They got Stephon Diggs, but is he gonna blow it up there immediately?
He could blow it up emotionally.
I guess they got Kyle Williams and their guy Kendrick Bourne and Matt Collins. Javon Baker's still there. They don't seem to want to give him a chance.
Nope.
I don't know. 8.5. They feel like a 7-win team this year. Okay. I don't feel good about them yet. I feel good about them in a year, right? With Vrabel there, and I don't know.
I'm also wanting to fade the Texans at 9.5. I know CJ Stroud is the truth. I know that they have 5 versions of the exact same wide receiver, but they did a whole offensive line revamp this year, and it was just bizarre. Nick Caserio's out here doing bizarre stuff as the GM of the Texans. I don't like where that team's at. We all know DeMeco Ryans, great leader of men. We all know that defense, when healthy, is wicked. I mean, that is a mean group of SOBs. Yeah. 8.5. I'm sure that a lot of people are going to bet the over on it just because of the number. And that's, how good bettors operate. You just play the number. I'm sorry, 9.5. I don't know. There's something fishy about Houston. I can't advocate to anyone to take the over on it, and I think I might just take the under based on the smell of fish.
Yeah, I'm with you. They've made some weird trades, and last year they were like the overhyped team that everyone was in on, and it just like wasn't quite right. And, I know they got rid of Bobby Slowick, our former 49ers colleague.
Yeah.
But I don't feel good about them. There's a gut feeling there that maybe that's not elite analysis, but it doesn't feel right.
No, you got to be able to it's like those guys reading putts on the PGA Tour now. You got to feel the ground. You got to walk the line and feel, is this 1 degree or 3 degrees? There's something off about the foundation in Houston, and it doesn't seem like it's going to get any better. Maybe we got it all wrong. There are some teams that go out there, do bizarre things, and that was exactly what they needed. Maybe that's the shakeup that Houston requires to get to the next level. I'm not buying it from my vantage point, and that's why they play the games after all. And that's, for analysis like this, that's why we talk to Jake Hutchinson. Subscribe to the Hutch Report. Subscribe to the Dieter and Hutch podcast. I don't know why you would do it for the first part, but the second part is definitely worthwhile in terms of the Hutch of the Dieter and Hutch podcast. Jake, a pleasure as always. Thanks for coming on Sports Phone KNBR.
Appreciate you having me on. Thanks.
And that should just about do it. Hell of a show today. Let's thank the great Jacob Violante for running the ones and twos, keeping this strange ship afloat as we soared through the evening in the West Coast here on Sports Phone KNBR. Thanks to everybody who chimed in, solicited and not. We did solicit the services of one Jake Hutchinson to talk 49ers football, and the great Jeff Young to talk Giants baseball. We'll be back at it again tomorrow night, 7 p.m. You can set your calendars. You can set your watches right now. We'll do it again on Thursday, too, after a little Niners OTA. Looking forward to it immensely. We'll talk on the other side. Until then, have a great night.